Somebody watching our stuff right now is going to be inspired to do something like that, and they can take it to a whole other level.
I hope so.
I think the best way to describe it now is like almost like being a recruiter, recruiting talent.
My objective walking out of that interview was to ensure that I ask the questions that I know the community wants to hear asked, right?
Wow, that's not the answer I was expecting. You actually got me genuinely laughing right now. Is $1,000 in one card worth more than $1,000 in 20 cards?
Man, that's tough. It depends on what's your play.
Hello, everyone. This is FD. Welcome to What's the Play. It's March 21st, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Someone that I respect a lot in the community. I wanted to invite on and let everybody get to know on my channel. But this is Carlos from I Am Carlos. How you doing, sir?
Good. It's a great intro. I like the little video setup and everything. I went back and watched the last episode. I was like, it's got a video intro and everything. It's like, okay then.
Yeah, we try to do different things to try to critique ourselves. I think after every show we sit back and look at what are some things we could do better.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
And we try to. So how's your day been today?
It's been all right. I was a little busy work-wise. I did get, I haven't had the chance to activate it. I tried it out today. I got one of those little lights that go directly above the monitor. So speaking of production values.
There you go.
I just started playing around with it. It's one of those like Elgato things. It's because it's always so dark facing this way. The light's always behind me. And I was like, okay, wait, I can actually do that. It's like, so I'm still playing around with it. I haven't quite mastered it yet, but I can control it through an app. So I was like, all right, good. Apparently it works. See, there you go.
There you go. There you go. Look at that.
Production values. There you go. Just for you, FD. The first time I ever used the damn thing, and at least it's on.
And, what we just did was got a Wi-Fi enhancer, and this is the second time we've used that. So it's all about production value.
There you go. Well, we try to make it. I joke with everybody. It's like this is not a profitable thing. Sports card YouTube is not. All this is out of pocket. But it's like no, it makes it. If it can make it like 5% better, that's good enough.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Well, so let me open up by let people know about your background, where you grew up, and how you got interested in the hobby.
Well, I grew up. So I was born in Panama City, Panama. Got here really early on, so that's why no accent, but yo hablo español, so I can switch back and forth a little bit conversationally, but not like fluently. Got here, first thing in hobby-wise, baseball. So baseball guy, played baseball for 6 years. Not especially well for most of it, but okay for some of it.
What position did you play in baseball?
I played third base quite a bit, and then first base when I was feeling less athletic, as you often do. So I was the fat kid in school, so I was feeling less athletic often. But sometimes they would stick me in the outfield. I was like, this is not a good idea. This is a bad idea. The combination of like slow foot speed and average throwing arm. Is this really what you want to be doing right now? Is it accurate throwing arm, but just not a particularly good one?
Yeah. Okay. So now, what do you collect as far as cards, or do you collect other things? What do you collect?
Yeah, so it's mostly cards, but baseball was the first, and that's still a mainstay. Mostly baseball wise, it's vintage. I am picking up some Soto cards, although I'm being picky about it. He is expensive, so I try to find a little value where I can there as a collector. I everything goes through the collector lens when I'm talking about what I'm collecting. It's always a collector lens. Not morally opposed to selling a card. That's perfectly fine. Not morally opposed to taking a profit. That's perfectly fine. But it's not the first thought I have. Obviously, Canada. So we do hockey. Started collecting Mike Modano cards, so that's a big one. And then as well, I can see in the comments there, I'm probably the most passionate Mike Trout collector ever. I'm his biggest fan. No one likes Mike Trout more than I do. So that's a running joke on the channel.
Southern California, we got some Mike Trout lovers now.
Yeah, but it's a running joke on the channel. It's like I spend a lot of time. I used to have people that would get really worked up when I just started denouncing Mike Trout. It's like, hey, he's okay, and they would lose their minds, and it was fantastic. I like to give. I joke that when I do my live streams, the biggest troll is the host, and it's a mistake to try to out troll the host. But you can have your fun. But baseball is still a favorite. Hockey, it's predominantly one or two players that I'll collect above all else. A little bit of football here and there sporadically, but it's mostly things that like catch my eye. I've got a couple of projects I'm working on now that are relatively inexpensive, and that's the fun part for me. It's like this is easy stuff.
Okay.
So I enjoy collecting certain Packer cards. I got some Brett Favre stuff that I picked up, but it's mostly inexpensive stuff. It's just for fun.
All right. Well, we got some comments I want to jump into. Joe, thank you for being here. Usually here. I appreciate you. What's up? We're rolling. Albert Jones, what's up, FD? How you doing? A Colorado sports dude. Yo, how's everyone? Chance Dizzle, what's good, FD? And Carlos, same as Yannick.
Yannick.
What's up? Yeah, Yank.
Yeah, Yannick, I know. Yep.
Okay. It's good to see. It's good to see some of your people here. That's good. Jeff, hello everyone. Great guest tonight for sure. For sure.
Yeah, Jeff's a good guy. He's a regular as well. Yeah, for sure.
Great guest. Yeah. Michael, how you doing, sir?
Evening, Michael.
What's going on, guys? Will, evening, gents.
Yeah, he knows about my undying life of Mike Trout. He knows about that one.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Cracked Card Company, 33% is the mint profit line.
Yeah, apparently 33 and a third. I like 33 and a third. You got to go higher. You got to go a little higher.
33 and a third. That is the mint crowd. So let's talk about what's going on in Vegas this weekend. Right. So I watched your show on the Mint. This is kind of the first of its kind, correct?
What is sorry?
Of the Mint in Vegas.
Oh, the Mint Collective. Yeah. So that show.
I'm going to the show itself. I haven't signed up for any panels. But what do you think of this, or just overall? Is it more of a, per se, I've talked to a few people who thought it's more of a networking event, or is it really more of a card show?
Yeah, I would treat it more, it does have a card show element of it, because it does have a small show associated to it. I did make a video about it, going over some of the panels and stuff. I think it's more of a networking event. That's the way I would consider it. That's the way I would treat it. There's nothing wrong with that. I did critique it because I thought there wasn't enough diversity in terms of the panelists. I understood why they did it, but they also put it behind like a paywall. To get the panels is a $6.99, which to me is a little bit high, and I
think that cost was originally $1,000, and I think they lowered it to $6.99.
Yeah, but I just looked at it as a value proposition, and I also tried to think like, okay, do I see $6.99 worth of value? That's basically what I was asking myself when I looked at those panels, and I went through them, and for the most part, my answer was no. But part of the problem, though, isn't their fault. One part of it, I think, is that it's very difficult to put that behind a paywall because you really have to provide a lot of value to make that feel like it's a good value. And the other piece of it, honestly, and this is, again, not their fault, this genre, this hobby, has the most accessible people in it as far as like the big people in the hobby. Now, you're not going to pick up your phone and get Josh Luber on the line all the time. You know, you may not have access to that. You may not have access to like a Nat Turner or somebody at the top end of that. But I know Peter from SGC. He's been on a lot of shows doing interviews. Carvin Chung is on one of the panelists. Carvin Chung, I mentioned, he's forgotten more about the hobby than most people know. I've had him on my show twice, and we chatted for 10 hours. You can go back in my archive and listen to him talk for 10 hours. Okay. So we've chatted with him, and I've chatted with him on the phone for hours that no one ever heard that will never make the light of day. But he is a passionate hobbyist, and so it's not like nobody can access these people. It's not that it's not possible. So it becomes a little tricky when you're like, okay, so you want to charge me $700? It's like, I don't know all of them, but it's like a lot of them. It's like you're either an instant message, an email, or a message away.
Sure.
And a lot of times they'll give you the light of day, a lot of these folks, and you can get a lot of their insights directly. You can be like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? It's not impossible.
It's going to be interesting to see what it's like being there in person. And I'm kind of interested to see how accessible these individuals are when not on panels, and how much of a conversation can you have with them.
I think that's the value. So that was my underlying point. As I said, the panels themselves, I'm lukewarm on for the price you're talking about. If they're accessible, if you're able to have conversations with some folks and network that way, then 100% worth it. Then I could 100% see the value in that, being able to chat with some of the folks, face to face, one-on-one, or even in small groups, a small conversation directly. The panel itself, though, okay.
Yeah, true. So let's jump into your collection. I know, like, I'm a collector long term.
Sure.
You're a collector also long term.
What
are some Grail cards that you would pick out and call out in your collection, and why you consider them Grail? Because everybody has a kind of a different definition of that.
Yeah, I think for me, the Grail is the thing that you maybe were looking after for a long time, or something that you aspired to. Aspiration, I think, is a big part of the Grail for me, for the
Yeah.
definition that I'll take. So I grabbed a couple here that I think would qualify. So this right here was a Grail card of mine for the longest time. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the 53 Topps Mantle.
Nice card.
Yeah. And I picked this up probably about 10 years ago or thereabouts. So this thing was about $600 back then.
Okay.
It's not nothing like that anymore.
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
I think in a one, I think it'll run you between $2,000 and $3,000, give or take now. But at the time, that was one of the because I gave the story in my channel forever ago. But really quick, the short version is when I was starting up and collecting in the early '90s, they had the price guides, you had the Beckett guides and everything out there. But there were these like little off-brand, offshoot price guides. But one of them was like I think Consumer's Choice, something like that. I forget the brand, but it was one of these offshoots. But they would have color pictures of a lot of the cards, so you could actually flip through it and see some of the. You could see the Mantles, you could see Mays, you could see a bunch of those. So that's kind of my first introduction to a lot of these vintage cards. So in the mid '90s, I started collecting, but it was one of those things where, in the back of my mind, I thought wouldn't it be cool to do like a complete run of the '50s and the Bowman and Topps and everything. Eventually, it became like it's not going to happen. No chance at all. But that does not mean that I cannot get the 53 Topps, because after the 56 Topps Mantle, that is my favorite card in the hobby, bar none. Just flat out favorite. So to me, that's why it would be a Grail. Today, it would be a lot more expensive to get your hands on, but still not so far out of reach if you're willing to accept that you're going to have to take it in a lower grade, unless you've got the resources.
Mm-hmm. I always tell people, and we kind of got into this in the conversation yesterday, that I think that if you see a card, now patience to me is very important in the hobby.
Yeah.
When you see a card that you think or you say that you want to add to your PC, it may not be something that can happen that day. It could be something that can happen over time if you work your way to it. I feel like I see less patience in the hobby today from some, right? From some people that are buying cars. It's an instantaneous thing, and it hasn't always been instantaneous for me. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's I don't want to present it this way, but it's the most honest answer. When we're all younger and we had to kind of mind our budget. It doesn't mean we don't mind our budgets now, but now we have a little thing called the credit card.
That's right.
And line of credit. We can kind of cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
It'd be like we'll rob Peter to pay Paul, and we'll kind of like extend it out. Don't worry about it. You'll pay it eventually. That's future Carlos's problem. that tends to be how we accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said, like, at the time $600 was the going rate. It's not like I got a super bargain at that time, but it was a fair price. It was the right price for this at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's 4 to 5 to 6x since then. So, and especially if it's got good eye appeal and the card's clean on both sides, so like it would go for more than 4, 5, 6 times that what it did at that time.
Yeah.
But that's because at the time it was. So for me at that time it was a stretch. But stretching $600 is different than stretching $3,000. Even with inflation, there's a very big difference in the level of stretch.
And I remember one time in the hobby, people were saying that vintage was very stagnant and there was no growth to vintage. Do you remember these days?
Yeah, but the thing is, the growth was flat. It was slow, and it was always like that. Now the truth is, when more money gets pumped into it, vintage is one thing that I always, because I always have the guys sometimes in the chat or sometimes in the comments, because they'll always be the guy that be like, "Oh, collect vintage, modern stupid." It's like, well, just remember, careful what you wish for. Like I always tell my buddies, is like, you realize the supply is actually much less. It wouldn't take much. Because if you really wanted to be one of those guys, it wouldn't take much. You just get one of those guys with money and go, okay, here's all you do. Go to eBay. Everything that's on there, like under $100, just buy it all. And all of a sudden, your set that you're working on, you can't get your singles and your commons for under 150, 200 bucks. All of a sudden, that set's getting real expensive really fast. It's not just the Mantles. It can be those other guys. We can push up that price. There's only so much of that supply out there. It's a very tiny supply. And right now, there's a moderate amount of people collecting it. It's fine. But if you keep encouraging these people, it's like, I actually like getting my stuff less expensive, not more. Mm-hmm. I still aspire to finish that 53 top set someday. I would still like to do that, and it's within striking distance. But it's like, don't make it more expensive for me. Be quiet. Vintage is terrible. It sucks. Get away.
So walk us through, because to me, the strategy on things is always important. And I like to talk to people about their strategy. What steps do you go through to finalize what card you would like to invest in? What are you doing?
Ooh, hashtag invest. If I'm going to do that, so my first thought is always from the collector side of it. I'm always looking at the collector side of it. It has to be something that's interesting to me that I'd want anyway. It has to be something that I'm quite willing to sit on and enjoy and collect.
That's right.
Here, the process is like any other thing. It's research and trying to figure out what you're trying to do. Having some kind of an idea, a strategy, a plan. I very rarely think about it from the investing perspective, but it tends to work out. But maybe if I was going to distill it down to one simple idea, um, cards are not like real estate. They're very different markets. However, one rule of real estate does apply to cards. You win the deal on the purchase. If you buy it at a good
Speak on that.
price,
Yep.
you win the deal on the purchase because
Right.
then you're not as concerned about the fluctuations. If it goes up a little bit, it goes down a little bit. This I paid $600 for.
There you go.
If it goes from 3,000 to 2,500, oh my god! If you pay 3,000, it's oh man, it went down 500.
Problem.
It's like it's 1,900 more than what I started. What do I care?
That's right.
There was like, if I and it's liquid enough, I can sell this if it's not an issue.
I feel the same way. I think this is why I try to put so much research into what should the initial price be that I'm paying for a card, and then my negotiation technique to understand how do we talk through this process on what the price of the card is.
Yeah.
There have been some people that ask me, like, why you harp so much? Why are you so concerned with that? And it's just like what you just said.
Yeah.
To
But
me,
there's
if
one
I
more thing I
buy
would
in
add.
at a certain level, then I've protected myself for some risk in the future.
Yeah. There's one more thing I would add though as well is that the mentality that I have with it, like I said, if you take it from the collector side mentality of it, I'm quite happy to hang on to these cards. It's not an issue. I don't care. Uh, if the price explodes on it and somebody wants to pay me a crazy amount of money compared to what I paid for it, I'm not going to turn your money down. That's fine. That's okay. But the truth is, it's much easier to be comfortable if the cards are not a line item on your assets to the point that you're living and dying on the sale of a specific card.
Yeah.
If that's not an issue for you, then there's no urgency. You're not acting out of desperation, and that's where you make mistakes. It's like if you're acting like, oh, I have to sell this. It's like, why? To cover all these other things about. Then you shouldn't have bought those other things. That was a terrible idea. You shouldn't have done that. You should never be acting, oh, I have to sell. No, I'll sell it if I want to, and it'll sell at the price that I want because I don't need to sell it.
And to me, what like collecting is such fun to me. It's been such a joy since I was young because it taught me a level of financial responsibility. Right. If I'm buying cars, it's like what you just talked about. Me personally, I feel like, can't speak for everyone, I should never be in a situation where I'm depriving my household. My credit line is in jeopardy,
Yeah.
or I can't pay certain bills that are important to me because I'm stating that I'm investing in this card.
Yeah.
Like that's a principle that has been very important to me over time.
Yeah.
How responsible am I with what I'm doing and what steps am I taking while I am investing or even buying a car or walking a card show or making a purchasing decision. Those are things that are important to me.
Yeah. But just think of how much easier a negotiation is if you really can walk away. If it's
So
not
I
a
used to work in
tactic.
sales. Carlos, I used to work in sales. And every account that I went into is no different than a card show. I could walk away at any moment. Like,
Yeah.
if the conversation is not going a certain way, I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with just walking away.
But that is the most powerful tool in a negotiation. If they're like, no, it's not a tactic. He's serious. If you really don't want to do the deal at that price, that's okay.
That's right.
They'll walk away.
The best alternative to a negotiated agreement is walking away. The one is one-on-one of negotiation. So Will asks a question here. He wants to jump into what's going on with V Friends and Zero Cool.
Yep.
And what's going on with that product. What are your thoughts on that? I'll share mine too.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I did do a video about this and how worked up the card collectors get about it.
I
How
watched
much
your
fun I
video.
have with that.
I watched your video.
Yeah, they get so worked up about it. It's like it doesn't matter that much. But like taking it to another part, I mentioned on my live stream. It's like I had a comment that basically proved my point. In the video, I basically laid out a couple of things about it, and I said it's like most of the people are not paying that close attention to what it is, but they're complaining about it as if they knew what it was, even though they clearly don't know what it is.
Yeah.
One person came specifically did exactly what I said in the video, and they said, "Oh, I hate this about this." I was like, they didn't pick the price. The price was chosen by the people who made the bids. And then afterwards, they're like, "Well, actually, I didn't realize that." And I go, "I know." but you jumped to complain about it, not realizing that they controlled their own fate. It wasn't Zero Cool. And then other people are like, "Well, Zero Cool is a stupid name." It's like it's a movie reference. Oh, it's a movie. Yeah, it's a movie reference. It's from Hackers. Oh, but
I didn't know. I didn't know that.
it's a movie reference. It's from Hackers.
Okay.
It's not a particularly great movie. It's an okay movie from the 90s, but that is actually what the name comes from. There's a reason for everything to it. And why Gary Vee? It's like, oh, I hate Gary Vee. It's like this, that, and the other thing. Gary Vee is, the great villain in the hobby. And it's like, why? It's like, oh, because he made all these people come in. It's like, no, he didn't. He probably brought attention to it and got some people into it, but that wasn't enough to move the needle on everything. When Gary Vee shows some stuff, if you ever look at the charts, it would spike up for a day or two and then settle back down to its normal pattern. He doesn't have that
True.
kind of power.
That's true.
Yeah, he has more power than like an average Joe Blow on the street just saying something, but it doesn't sustain. He cannot personally control or keep that going, even if he wanted to. And he's a businessman. He doesn't care about making a couple extra bucks on a card. He did his, and that's the thing. A lot of those same folks don't know anything about Gary Vaynerchuk at all, because that's his name. It's not just Gary V. That's the brand. But Gary Vaynerchuk, the businessman, he created during the pandemic. He created a direct to consumer wine thing. He
Yes,
sold
he
it, I
did.
believe, to Constellation Brands,
Mhm.
and nobody knows the exact dollar amount, but it's probably eight or nine figures. You think he cares because he made a couple extra bucks on a Giannis card? By the way, you haven't been able to prove to me he sold it.
That's
If it's
true.
still sitting in his warehouse, it's the pump without the dump. He's not even doing the second half that you're accusing him of it. So, long story short, he makes sense because he's got an audience, and he makes sense because that audience theoretically doesn't care about sports cards, which is actually better for the product. Because if I'm selling sports card people a different product, I'm getting money, yeah, but it's like, and I use the analogy. Okay, I get your $100. You got $100 to spend. You can spend it on Topps product, or you can spend it on VFriends. If I'm Josh Luber, I'd rather you just spend it on Topps, and I'd rather get your friend who wouldn't touch Topps with a 500-foot pole, but who might be interested in this junk.
Yep.
And you know what? I get his $100 too. And then I get $200 instead of $100. That's a win. I want the people who don't care about Topps. I want the people who don't care about sports cards. And if you don't care about it, beautiful. It's not for you. Move on.
Mhm. So I listened to Luber last week talk to Jeff Wilson,
Mhm.
and he talked about the fact. I know you
Another
listened.
guy the hobby loves.
Yeah, yeah, right. He talked about how this is an attempt to grow the market, bring in people that aren't historically, like you just talked about, historically interested in sports cars, and something that's the same dimension and shape to get them interested in what this could be. He talked about cars of politicians, rappers, people from entertainment, different actors and actresses, people in pop culture in general, not just now, but into the future. Number cars that are autographed by them, cars that may have a piece of a costume they wore in a concert in a certain city, the things like that to make more mass appeal for the product.
Almost nothing related to sports cars.
Nothing.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's almost like they already have a sports card brand that they could do that under that is not this.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem so.
And I thought of Zero Cool as like huge marketing research for them to release a product.
It is.
Yeah. Go through how limited this is,
Mhm.
and then see what is the how are people going to respond to this, and then who's going to buy this. We can see already that boxes have went from a little over $2,000. Recently, I saw some on Car Ladder boxes around $14,000
Mhm.
in just a few days.
It's a proof of concept. It was to make sure the website worked. It's to make sure the format worked. It's to make sure they were able to do it. The site didn't crash. They were able to do it without a hitch. They were able to show all the information. They were able to do all that stuff. They gave everybody the glorious transparency they want so badly. Tell
That's
us
right.
how many boxes you made.
How much
tell
is
us,
out there?
Tell us how many positive porcupine cards there are, because that's my personal favorite, positive porcupine. But I watched one on eBay. It's already past $400. I'm not buying that, but I wanted to kind of buy it and give it to my buddy and force him to have it. I want it on your desk. I want you to look at positive porcupine. I need you to be more positive. Is what I need you to do.
Hey,
Like I said, troll. This is what I do.
and I think Luber talked about other offerings coming very soon,
Yeah,
if not in the month of April.
I think the next one is supposed to be a more standard celebrity-based one. Like I said, that's why I said. But people fixated on these little things like, oh, the cartoons. Who cares? It's not for you. That's why I gave that extended analogy. I go, you're not just complaining about somebody's house. You had to go out of your way and drive for hours to go and stare at it so that you could curse at it. It's like, do you have nothing better to do?
True. So now, walk us through. I know you started a channel.
Yeah.
Walk us through why you wanted to tell your story to other collectives, other people through your channel. What sparked that?
Well, initially it was just because I had the channel already. I'd had some videos that had done well on it, but I hadn't decided what I wanted to do with it. I'd been in cards for by that at that point almost 30 years now, over 30 years. So I was like, okay, well, I can talk about this all day. This is easy. I tried doing a little bit of box breaks and stuff. It wasn't for me. So I said, okay, what can I do? I got opinions on things. And then I went and watched some videos that gave opinions. This sucks. I think I can do better.
Yeah.
It's a standard thing. It's like, actually, I think I can do better than this. And then
Well,
you
you know-
take on the challenge.
And I asked that question because anybody that's out there listening that may want to do content one day, or may want to be on YouTube, or may want to focus on some other avenue of doing content that may not even be created yet. I think the thing that you quickly said was doing something, changing something, and maybe doing something else, or always altering what you do is important. It's important, right? When we started this channel, we were going to shows and talking to people, but this format that we have right now, we hadn't even started yet. And there may be other things that we want to do in the future. Then sometimes I mess around and do like some shorts on sports or whatever else. But I think the more you reinvent yourself or think critically about what you do and then tweak it a little bit, it's always good. It's always important.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is that there's a big difference between giving up too soon and pivoting. The reason why I stopped doing the box break thing is because I wasn't particularly great at it. I can't feign enthusiasm. It's stuff that's okay.
Yeah, I know what
like
you mean.
you pull a hit and it's like, it's okay, but I know what it is. It's like, it's fine. I can't fake being ridiculously enthusiastic about it. I'm kind of matter of fact about it. So I go, okay, I don't have the right energy for this kind of video because I'll watch them. This person knows how to do it better than I do. That's what they're good at. So you know what? I'll do what I'm good at.
That's right. That's right. That's a good point. What would you say to someone that wants to come into the hobby and get started, and then someone who came into the hobby during the boom and the market is different now? What advice would you give those two groups of people?
So somebody who wants to get started and somebody who came in during the boom.
Yep.
So somebody who wants to get started, it'll be fun, but do your research before you spend a dime. Easier said than done because the temptation is to spend money first.
That's right.
You will get more bang for your buck initially, figuring out what you like. I love buying singles, but that's always one of my favorite things. You'll get good bang for your buck. I love opening packs, but it's one of those things. It's an expensive way to go about it. The good news is we can do it a little bit better now, and they're still fun to be had. I think so if somebody wants to get into it, the good news is you have options. We're not at the absolute apex of the boom anymore. We're kind of stagnant, sliding down in certain categories. That's not a bad thing. To somebody who did start during the boom, my condolences. Maybe be willing to pivot.
Same way. Yeah.
Be willing to pivot. Learn your lesson. It's I think going back to the point you made earlier about patience. We've all made bad deals. We've probably made a lot of bad deals if we've been around long enough. The important part is to learn from it. It's like that's the cost of education. Yeah, I shouldn't have bought that. That was dumb.
It's true.
Okay, not a big deal. But that's the advantage of it not being a line item. If you're spending half your life savings on it, then you're living and dying on every transaction, every deal. Well, then I can see why this would be highly stressful for you. As you can tell, I'm a very high-strung individual over here. I'm very stressed all the time. I don't care. It's not that important.
Yeah.
Life will go on. It'll be fine.
That's right. And that's the undertone of your content. Keep things in mind, keep things in perspective. Notice this, notice that, learn from this. Well, let's keep things in perspective. And that's why I like watching. I've commented on some of your things and reposted some of your things because we are like here at the house, my family, we talk about stuff. We talk about the hobby, the industry, and we'll be talking about something. We'll turn on Carlos and you're saying the exact same thing that I'm thinking.
Yeah, because this isn't serious. This is supposed to. I started at the absolute apex of the junk wax era.
So did I.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of cards that I have aren't worth the paper they're printed on. I can't get rid of them by the pound. I try to get rid of them and 5 more come back. They grow back. I try to get rid of them. And the thing is, I have more 1991 Donruss than any human being has any reason to have. But okay, so be it. Not a big deal. It's
and I can remember as a young person opening those cards and thinking like, man, I got this person and that person and this person.
Yeah.
Then when you look back on it, you have memories.
Yeah. That's the thing. It was the 1991 Donruss, as plentiful as it was and as garbage as it is, that was Carlos Sr. going to the pharmacy, because you could buy the packs at the pharmacy. He'd go and buy them, stick them at the top of the refrigerator where I can't get them, And if you did your homework or you did this, that, or the other thing, you get a couple of packs to open.
That's right.
That's how that worked. This is how this game was played. So, and the damn things aren't worth a thing. But guess what? If I go and buy a box of junk wax at a show or something, I take it back to the house. Carlos Sr.'s still there. My younger brother's still there. I drop it on the table. My younger brother doesn't even like sports cards. Carlos Sr. didn't play any sports really. He played some here and there. He doesn't like sports cards. I drop it on there and go, hey, you want to open some packs? All right, what are we looking for? Isn't it funny? Like, he'll come right over. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
It's not worth a damn thing. You can get it for a couple of bucks the box. No one cares. What are you looking for? This guy and this guy. Okay.
That's what it's all about. TSA Canada, thank you for being here. Appreciate you being here.
Is it Brad or Sherry? Who's behind the account today? I know PSA Canada.
Who's behind
the account?
Carlos knows. My advice to newbies, this is what Will says, is to learn via small purchases, ramp up as you can see fit, enjoy, don't go crazy. And the whole ramp up thing is a patience thing that we're talking about. You know, I'm at shows, I go to shows here, and I'll see younger collectors, 12, 15, 19 years old. And some of them will tell me, hey, I may have a PSA 9 of this player, a PSA 8 of that player. No one really wants that. But my advice to them all the time is keep trying to do what you're doing. Learn more about the cards that you have. Set realistic aspirations of what cards you would like in the future, and develop a strategy and a brand of how you're going to get there. And that's really what it's all about. But I think a lot of times they may see things that it's hard for them to be patient on growing and building and moving up. I was telling a friend last night that I used to work with. We had a conversation. And I was saying there are some cards that I have purchased in the last 2 years. When I was a kid, I would have never thought I'd been able to purchase that card. Mm-hmm. And I'm the kind of person where I add something to my PC as something that I've really wanted for a while, and I cherish the moment. Like, I'm thankful that I'm able to purchase this card, add this to my PC, and realistic about it. And another thing I do that I think is different than maybe some collectors is that when I add something to my PC, it kind of goes straight into storage. Like, I've never been a person to like really look at things a lot. If somebody probably walked in my house, I've said this before, you may not know I collected anything. Mm-hmm. It's just been a part of my strategy, I guess, of how I collect. Brad said he's
the one in charge today. All right, I got you. Yes, all right, Brad. Good evening, Brad.
Brad, it's great to meet you. Daniel asks, what part I missed tonight? I'll catch on archive. I was looking forward to this show. Well, we just got started a little bit ago. There'll be more coming for you as you're here, and then you can catch the beginning in archive. Yeah. What are some of the challenges, Carlos, that you've seen coming into the hobby, and how you've handled them? What are some things over time as you've been collecting that you saw as a potential challenge, or it was something that was a learning opportunity for you that if somebody's listening to you right now, they could learn from?
It goes back to that reoccurring theme of the patience thing. It's very tempting when prices are moving up to try to be a little bit more aggressive and go after that. You can pick your spots, though. It's one of those things where there's almost always an opportunity. The other thing that's honestly a challenge is people, they have kind of this retroactive FOMO. They go, oh, man, if I had bought that like 5 years ago. It's like, yeah, we all have that. That's part of the game. That. But it works both ways. It's like, yeah, 5 years ago, you made a decision not to. You did have that opportunity, because the same way that you're complaining about the prices going up is that it's like, well, you could have done something about it all along the way. We didn't get there all at once.
That's right.
My favorite was the classic, the iconic card, the 52 Topps Mantle. In the old guides in the early 90s, it was $8,000. That's what they put on there. Now, some of them would have cost you a little bit more. Some of them would cost you a little bit less. And that's $8,000 is like for the near mint copy. That's what they would put.
And that was $8,000 before we started grading cards.
That's right. But here's the thing. Imagine if you had picked up one with nice eye appeal and you picked it up and you paid $8,000. Everyone would have told you you're an idiot. Mm-hmm. Where are you at today, 30 years on?
True.
You put it in that little piece of plastic.
Think about the mantle that collector picked up for a little over $100,000 in the 90s.
Yeah, Marshall Fogel, the PSA 10. Yeah.
Everybody thought he was crazy. What is that car worth now? I can remember going to the National. Man, this was probably about 10 to 12, probably 15 years ago. I saw a Michael Jordan autographed jersey in a oak frame, like with a glass front for $5,000.
Yep.
And I stood there, Carlos, for about 5 to 10 minutes looking at that jersey and asked myself, do I make that move on one thing, or do I take that and do other things here? I opted to go do other things. Now I look at that jersey now. Jersey's worth a lot. It was numbered.
Yeah.
Any Jordan jersey now that is numbered is worth a lot. But I'm still good with making that decision to go do something else.
Yeah, but that was
I didn't spend all that money that I had on anything there, and I walked away with some funds still in my pocket.
Yeah, the thing is that the thing you learn if you're around long enough is that you will have those fork in the road moments, and then afterwards, if you want to sit there and lament on it, you certainly can. You're welcome to it, but the hobby, the way I like to phrase these things is that the hobby is built on nostalgia for a lot of us. You know, it's built on nostalgia trying to get into it. But there are folks who actively like to live in the past. I don't. So it's like nostalgia is fine, but then actively living in the past, that's the toxic version of it. It's like you just please, we're living in the present. Let's move on. Let's focus on what we can do now. All right, you messed it up. Fix it next time. Don't worry, do better next time.
There's more to do. There's more fun to have. There's more people to meet and have conversations with.
Yeah, the present's more dynamic than the past. There was somebody, if I can ever find it, I'll send it to you because I think it's actually a really good visual. Somebody did like a little infographic, and what they did is they did two sides of a picture, and on the first side of it is this branch with all these little roots and all these things going, and it shows this one little path carved out. That was your past. That's the path you took. But then you can see all these other paths you could have taken that are all grayed out. That's and then all of a sudden there's a dividing line, and then there's a second part of it. Every single branch is active. That's the present. Those are all your options and all the directions you can go. Past can't fix it. You already made your decision. It's done. The present, you got 1,000 choices.
Yeah, you can go in many different directions. I always tell young people that, and this applies, I think, to even the older people too, that you have 360 degrees in which you can move, different things you can do. And as you make decisions throughout life, you may close or change certain doors that could have opened for you. If you keep that in mind as you're making decisions, it'll help you guide you through the decisions that you're making.
Yeah, I just think it's more exciting.
That when I was real young, it helped me out.
Yeah, I just think it's more exciting to look at the prospects to come, because the opportunity in front of you is like you're actively getting a chance to make a choice right now.
That's right.
As opposed to it's like that other thing. It's like, all right, you want to think about it? Think about it later. You already did it.
And I tell people like
turn back.
All right, we talk about Kobe, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Who's the next 25, 30,000 point scorer? That person is coming.
Yeah.
Who is that person? Let's find out who that person is. Who's the next person that may challenge? There's going to be somebody that may challenge Kareem, LeBron, Karl Malone for all-time scoring in the NBA. Who is that person? That person's coming.
With the three-pointers, there's more opportunity. The sport is built for that. It has an opportunity for that.
That's right. So now in baseball, right? I know you're a baseball collector. Who are some of your favorite players in baseball?
So at the end of the last rope, Pujols, because he was my favorite hitter. He was the dominant hitter, especially the first half of his career. Obviously, he tailed off to second half, but I still enjoyed watching him play in the second half anyway. Soto is the exciting young player. He's the one I like because when I watch him hit, the analogy I use is that as time goes on, I become more and more casual as a sports fan. I just don't pay attention to the nitty-gritty nearly as much. There was a time where I knew who everybody on every team. I was playing in fantasy. I was all in everything. You know what? I kind of just enjoy watching the game now. I just kind of just want to watch the game. But I know what I like. I know when I see a young player who's showing plate discipline well beyond his years.
Your eye appeal, right? You see something, right?
Yeah. So I look at what he's doing, and I'm like, you're taking walks at 19. While your contemporaries are swinging away and whiffing and getting air. And I'm like, and even strike three, you're like, you look at the umpire like he's wrong. And it's like, yeah, he's wrong. That was a ball. I like that because that is sustainable. And that swing is solid. Now, people are going to be concerned for a little while because the power numbers haven't kicked yet, but he's got power. Mm-hmm. But his swing is flat. But he's going to hit line drives. And if he keeps doing that and gets it so that he's hitting line drive consistently, the ball will go out. That won't be a problem. But I'll take the guy who can hit 320, 330, who's capable of doing that consistently. I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's to me, I always talk about eye appeal when it comes to collecting. what do you see a player doing early in their career that is beyond their peer group, like you just talked about? Also, what when you see a player, is there something that pops off more than just their stat line about them? If they're in basketball, are they hustling without the ball? Are they moving around? They're in football. When they do get an opportunity to come into the game, special team. There's been some Hall of Fame players that have come on special teams in the NFL who started their career there. When you see that person on the field, what are they doing? I don't care if it's boxing, if it's USC, whatever it may be. What is their eye appeal test? And I think that goes back to actually watching the sports. And there are collectors that don't really watch the sport that they collect in.
Not some. I'd say like 95%.
That's right.
Probably.
Which I think is quite interesting because if I'm putting my money behind something, I have to sit down. And the other day I was watching, we were talking about baseball, right? I was looking at some prospects. MLB.com, or MLB channel had top 100 prospects in baseball. And I'm just sitting watching a lot of these players. I don't know who they are, but I'm opening my mind to understand who this player may be. I've heard of a guy from Pittsburgh. I've heard of a guy here. Let me see during the season, what are these players doing as I watch or as I check a stat line or anything like that. That's just always how I've collected. It's fun to me too, just to say. But I'm kind of like you, Carlos, where I used to watch a lot of sports. I sit down and watch football games all day. I can't do that anymore. I have other stuff that I have to do, but I kind of keep an ear out for what's going on.
Yeah. A lot of times I have the streaming package for football, so I'll watch a fair number of football games, but I'll watch the Packers fairly intently. I'm paying attention to what they're doing, but then I'll put on Red Zone. So I'm not now. I'll watch the Sunday night, or I'll watch the Monday night, or I'll watch that a little bit more closely. But for the most part, it's like I'll have Red Zone on. Show me the important plays. Show me the scoring plays. Show me a little bit. So I'm not going to be in as deep as some other guys who are like fixated on focusing on some of these guys. So I'm not going to be able to be like, oh yeah, I think this guy is better. I'll know it if I see it. There's certain things that'll come off the page to me, so to speak. But I'm not going to be able to give you advanced analytics on it. I can't say what the DVOA is. I have no earthly idea.
Yeah. Well, what do you? Let's talk football right quick. So,
sure.
I had a conversation recently with some people. When you think about three quarterbacks in football, you think about Tom Brady, Drew Brees.
Reluctantly. Another joke on my channel. Go ahead.
Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers.
Sure.
What is the difference between those three quarterbacks?
Oh, if I want to be trolly, or do you want the honest answer?
No, you can troll.
The honest answer is Tom Brady has people carrying him, sore shoulders from carrying, his mediocrity, his pathetic excuses at athleticism, that. What here's what Tom Brady has, and this is the only time I'll say anything nice about Tom Brady. So you're getting it. This is it. Okay. He's got a tenacity. He's got that chip on his shoulder. What I'll say is this: I think his talent is mediocre. I think he's athletically he's kind of crap. But here's what I'll say: I've never seen anybody who has maximized their capabilities more than he has. Who will not give up on a game? Who will not give up on a play? Who will try really hard? That competitiveness is where he does separate himself. Because Aaron Rodgers, arm talent wise, it's not even close. Like it's not even in the discussion. Drew Brees isn't quite as athletic, but he's very accurate, like supremely accurate. And I would say Drew Brees is pretty competitive too. But Aaron Rodgers kind of gets his own head, and that's why I joke. It's like we in Green Bay, we've had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. We have had 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. We have 2 Super Bowls to show for it, 3 attempts to show for it. Still, it could be worse. There are other teams who would take that, who would take that in a heartbeat. But both of them are flakes. And Brett Favre is an incredibly flawed human being who has an irresistible urge to throw an interception at the most inopportune moment. Like he can't, but he had a cannon.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, but he had a cannon. He was built like a tank, and he could take a shot like nobody else would, and would still make the throw. And he would make throws that nobody else could make because nobody else would be stupid enough to stay in the pocket long enough to try to launch that.
That's true.
But when it worked, it was exciting. It was spectacular. Aaron Rodgers can make plays that are exciting. They're spectacular. Tom Brady can make that 15-yard pass to the wide open guy like nobody else can, but he does it with consistency. The point is he keeps doing it, and he'll do it year in and year out over and over and over again, and that's how you succeed. That's how you keep putting yourself in position to win championships. Combined with some good coaching, combined with some talented players because it doesn't matter how perfect the throw is. If the guy drops the pass, you're not getting anywhere. The guy still has to make the play. So as long as the other guys make the play, though, and you're doing your side of it, let's put it this way. They will not lose the game because of Tom Brady. And he can occasionally come in and help them get over the top. Aaron Rodgers can win you a game, but he can also shut down at the most inopportune moment and lose you a game.
Which is interesting about him, that he does do that.
Because it's not, that's why I said the nicest thing I can say about Tom Brady ever is that he has that mental fortitude. The mind is where his edge is. Where Aaron Rodgers has the throwing talent, Tom Brady has this. And it's not that Aaron Rodgers is stupid. He's a very smart guy. But sometimes he's too smart for his own good. He needs to be like, no, I need you to fight through this. I need you to actually go to that extra gear because it's there. I can see it when you're mad and suddenly that gear kicks in. Aaron Rodgers, Skip Bayless says a lot of really dumb things, but the comparison to LeBron is actually not a terrible comparison because in terms of mental makeup, Aaron Rodgers and LeBron have a lot of similarities where it's like, if I could put the tenacity of this guy into you, you would lap the other guy. If I took Michael Jordan's competitiveness and stuck it in LeBron's body, he'd win 20 championships.
Yeah, it's lights out.
It'd be game over. If I took Tom Brady's tenacity and put it in Aaron Rodgers' skill set, it's game over. We know who the GOAT is. And it's not Tom Brady at that point. But they don't have that. So the mental makeup is what gives those guys that edge. And then it's opportunity and take advantage of that opportunity.
I like that. I think that's a great way to put it because I always say LeBron is a player who doesn't want to just kill you on the court.
Yeah.
He wants to win the game. Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan want to annihilate it. Just let you know. Break your will. That's what they wanted to do. And LeBron doesn't work like that.
But you see, after Kobe died, he scored an additional 10,000 points because I saw him move up the charts for a lot of people. He was not in the top 10, top 5 discussion for anybody when he retired. Not one living soul. But unfortunately, when he passed away under the circumstances, I think he scored an extra 15,000 points after the helicopter crash or something. Like they suddenly bumped him up several levels, and I was like, "What the heck?" It's like I remember all of y'all, and not a single one of you had him in the top 10. Not a one of you.
That's true. His cars were undervalued.
Clearly.
People are not collecting that.
Here's the thing, though. I will say this: Kobe, though, almost took it too far. Like he did try to replicate a lot of Jordan's tenacity and the mental and the mama mentality, but he actually overcooked it. He actually he actually probably cost himself some championships because he overcooked it. He probably would have had an easier time if he had been able to get along a little bit better, because then the Shaq thing could have stuck around a little longer. They would have won a couple more that way, most likely.
I agree. And I think that's what Kobe was trying to show more of himself and do more of before he passed away. We had started learning way more about Kobe Bryant than we ever knew when he was playing.
Yeah.
But you just think about this, Carlos. Kobe Bryant would sit in his locker, in the locker room before games, and watch nothing but highlights of Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Not anybody else. He's not watching film on the people who are about to play. He's watching Michael Jordan.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be said for emulating the guys that have what you're trying to do and learning from that. And that's a big thing. Now I can see there that the Ty Daniel there says something. Now it's very important. I know you're really good at getting the highlights. I need you to make sure you remove anything nice I said about Tom Brady because I need to go back to my slander. Okay. You can leave in the parts where I say he's unathletic. He's trash. Like he's unathletic and he ran like a 45-minute 40, something like that.
Yeah, he's a very the thing about Tom Brady though, if you ask him 45 yards away to put the ball on the end of a pencil, he could do that.
In the latter part of his career, he got really good at that. He had the ability. He had close to that ability because if you go back to the early part, he wasn't making those throws.
No, he wasn't making those throws.
He got better at it as time went on. That's why I say he kept working on his game. The part that I'm giving him credit for is that he kept working on his game because his ceiling was lower than these other guys I was talking about. Sure. But if you get closer to your ceiling, that means you can surpass somebody who has a higher ceiling and doesn't try as hard. There are plenty of guys where it's like your ceiling is limitless. Like it's up there, but you never tried as hard. So you were still great. But imagine how you would have been if you had actually tried to reach the guy in basketball. I'm not a basketball guy, but in my opinion, the guy in basketball, where if he had tried as hard as he wanted, as he could have the whole way through, would have been the guy we all talked about forever, would have been a guy like Shaq. Because you could just push everybody around and just score at will. And there were stretches of time where it's like, just keep going. I'm just going to shove you out of the way and I'm going to score anyway.
One of the greatest questions that always come to my mind is, what if Shaq stayed in the same shape that he was in Orlando?
Yeah.
For 75 to 90% of his career.
And what if he worked on his free throw shooting so he was adequate? He doesn't need to be great. Just adequate. because then the hack a Shack doesn't work. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so we can't out physical him, and the hack a Shack doesn't work. What's left? Nothing. He will do whatever he wants, and you'll like it.
That's right. So, because Colorado Sports News asked the question, what do you think about players that are easier to collect that are on paths to greatness? No quarterbacks or hitter, but defensive players or pitchers. Aaron Donald and a lot of pitchers are hard.
Yeah, a lot of it. It's hard to it's because whenever you're looking at value on something, right? What you run into is it's not just they're great. It's are they popular? And in football, it's not just supply. It's demand, right? And demand really comes down to we can appreciate them. We can appreciate Aaron Donald. We can appreciate one of the best pitchers control wise that I ever saw was Greg Maddox.
That's right.
He was pinpoint. And if you look at the wins and you look at what he did, we're not replicating that in the modern era. He's actually head and shoulders. He went back to the old school. Winning 350 games plus is something that will not happen again in the current era, the way we're set up now. But he was able to do it year in and year out and be great consistently. Randy Johnson was a dominant fastball pitcher, which we have, but he's able to keep it going for long enough to get the 300 wins. He was able to get 4,500 strikeouts, which most of these guys are going to blow out their arm before they ever get to that point, if they try. So they were special. There were a handful of these guys that were special, and we don't appreciate them as much as we should.
Oh, we don't.
Randy Johnson was dominant. Like, he was absolutely almost unhittable at times. When Greg Maddox was on his game, he was virtually unhittable, but he did it in a completely different way. And both of them were effective. Both of them worked. And then you take like an Aaron Donald. We'll appreciate him to a certain degree. We'll appreciate his highlights. We'll appreciate a lot of it. The question is, you can appreciate it, but the question I always ask is, like, okay, cool. Do you want to collect his cards? Because all you got to do, and this is what I say to anybody who thinks it's undervalued, no problem. Go on eBay right now, find the thing, send the guy a message. It's $100. Send the guy a message. Go, hey, I think this is undervalued. I really think it should be higher. I want you to take $500. I know it's a buy it now for $100, but I want to pay you $500. I want you to jack it up, and I will hit the buy it now. No one will do that.
No one.
Not one solitary soul will do that. In fact, they'll try to talk you down from the 100.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, guys.
But likability, like what you're talking about, is very important because
Super important.
You take a player like Tim Duncan, and you think about Maddox, right? Maddox and Randy Johnson have some similarities.
Yeah.
They really don't want to be talking to people for too long about too much of anything. They want to go out on the field and do what they do, and that's dominate, and then walk away.
Yeah.
And if you don't engage first, to me, the first level is reporters and media. And then you start engaging people. Now we have social media, things like that. A modern player that I would think of in basketball is like Kevin Durant, right? He doesn't really want to be answering questions from the media and talking to people about things.
Yeah.
But if you think of some other players that are more charismatic and talk to people, even John Morant has more of that.
Yeah.
Where he'll talk to people and have conversations. That translates to card values in the market and how collectors feel about that player.
Well, what's going to happen is that's going to help a guy like Giannis.
That's right.
In the long run, because it's like, imagine he decides to stay in Milwaukee and never wins another championship. You think, oh man, he only won one championship, but he was really good for a really long time. It's like, yeah, but you know what? I kind of like Giannis.
That's right.
And you know what? He won it in Milwaukee. He did it his way. He didn't go to a super team. He didn't do that. He tried his best, and they still did win a championship. Like, I'm sorry, that counts. And compared to a guy like KD, it was like, yeah, but then he went to that team that was already really good. Then he went over to that team that was really good. They built another team. It's like, I kind of hate that guy. He's kind of a dick.
That's right. And Giannis is super humble. Tells the story.
People like him. People like him.
People laughs and jokes about stuff, but can be serious at the same time.
Yeah.
He's relatable.
Yeah. You know, a guy that'll benefit though in the long run. Now it'll depend on how he decides to approach it, because LeBron has, like I said, he lacks certain intangibles, but despite that, he will probably be the all-time leading point getter.
I think he will now. At one point, I didn't think so, but I think he will now.
He's tracking. He's getting there. His longevity, all that will be when he retires. If he can manage to walk away and just focus on his charitable works, focus on his philanthropy, just concentrate on that. Just focus on that. I think time will be very kind to LeBron in the long run.
I agree.
They will appreciate him more because it's like, okay, so you can't complain about LeBron playing anymore because he's not playing anymore. Man, the league was more fun when we were making fun of LeBron or we were complaining about LeBron. And now it's so boring. Now we got these other guys. So he'll get his Kobe like. Hopefully, it doesn't require him dying. Preferably not.
Hopefully not.
But he will get, if he can focus on his stuff post playing career and has a very successful post playing career, there will be a greater appreciation for him because it'd be like, yeah, Jordan was great. Yeah, Jordan was tenacious. Jordan's kind of a jerk.
Mhm.
Nobody likes Jordan post retirement. We can respect his accomplishments, but nobody likes Michael Jordan. Like he's a jerk. But if LeBron can get away, focus on building his schools in Akron, build his schools in Ohio, doing that, helping out the kids and doing all, and he gets away and he's not in your face all the time on Sports Center anymore. All of a sudden, they'd be like, LeBron wasn't so bad. Why do we hate on the guy so much? And that will help his values.
I agree. I've said this before. I totally agree. I think he's probably going to be the player that's going to do the most post-career to help his car values and his overall likability, probably than any other player we've ever seen that's a Hall of Fame.
Yep. It's going to be one of those things where all of a sudden everybody like, why do we hate on him so much? Because he was in your face all the time. When he's in your face all the time, these little things that annoy you will dig at you until it really bugs you. But then he gets away for a while. He focuses on other things. It's like, so you're going to hate on him for doing charity work? Like, he's not playing anymore, okay? So leave him alone for that.
How much do you think him being 18 years old and labeled the chosen one has to do with this?
For a lot of people, it killed him. And they never passed it. And then the decision, which was an immature move. Like, it was an immature move.
Yeah.
But then down the road, it'd be like, you're not complaining about KD doing basically the same thing. He didn't do a special. But he could have done KD, the decision, and would people have complained about it as much? Oh, well, yeah, LeBron already did that. Fair enough.
Very true.
LeBron just needs better marketing post-playing days. Once he retires, get some good marketing guys on there, and all of a sudden he'll be appreciated for what he did do on the court. He'll be appreciated for his accomplishments on the court, and then any charitable works he does later, people will like him a little bit more later.
I agree. Bent said, what would we be talking about if Brady had chosen baseball over football and went on to become a Montreal Expo? I mean, that's a lot. To me, there's a lot of athletes that fall in there. What was John Elway if he'd have went to baseball? There's a lot of athletes.
I think it was the Yankees for John Elway, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, which would have been interesting.
Very
interesting. It is the great what if.
Colorado, I got to meet Greg Maddox, one of the few players I've met. Anyways, it's always buy what you like in the end. True.
Yeah, I would say like guys like that though, if you enjoyed them playing, like I like a bunch of the 90s baseball was like my bread and butter. It was my favorite. It was my favorite time watching I watched as many games I could get my hands on. I was on the MLB.TV streaming package at the earliest of early days that was possible. I was watching it on the stupid Real Player, okay? It was like 120p. It was actual garbage. I've been grandfathered into that thing. I've been on it for I don't even know how many years. It's got to be like 15 or 20 on the streaming package. But it was a fun time having guys like Randy Johnson and Greg Maddox. If you like them, well, here's the good news: collect them, have fun.
Yeah,
because you could get amazing stuff for them really cheap compared to some of the great hitters of the day.
I can tell you this: whenever I think of Nolan Ryan, I start thinking about Randy Johnson.
Yeah,
he's a great pitcher. Great pitcher. The stuff.
Well, Nolan's got his documentary that's coming out in a little while. There's one that he is involved in producing. I'm curious. I'm curious to see it. I'd like to see what he came up with. That'd be fun.
And I think there's a lot about these athletes that we're talking about from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that we don't know a lot about. There was no social media. All these stories were not told. A lot of this stuff was folklore, and now we're about to start seeing some things that tell us more about these athletes.
Well, Nolan's going to be fun. Nolan's going to be one of the weird ones when younger folks and kids who didn't know anything about his history figure it out. It's like, wait, so he was on the Mets? Yeah, he won a World Series with the Mets. And then he spent the entire 1970s in playing for the Angels. Yeah, that's where he got a bunch of his no-hitters and really established him. And then he spent the 80s with the Astros. Yeah. And then he went to the Rangers at the end and got his 7th no-hitter over there.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it kind of blows your mind when you go back and you think about Tom Seaver and Nolan Ryan were on the same pitching staff.
And Jerry Koosman was considered to be one of their better pitchers. The other guy on the rookie card, he was actually really good. He was actually really good.
Very true. Very true. MLB TV will be interested on dial-up.
It was trash. It was trash. It's exactly what you can imagine.
I remember being in high school, and I'm trying to do a project, and I'm working on something on the internet, and we get a call at the house, and I'm just kicked off. Most people don't even remember times like that.
Yeah. I was very fortunate where I was. I got internet here in 94, broadband in 99. So we were here pretty early on both. As soon as we got broadband, it was a godsend. It's like, wait, so we don't need the modem that doesn't have
That's
to yeah, modem, yes, but not the same, so they could just stay online all the time. It was 1 megabit. Oh, miracle,
right.
miracle of miracles.
Hmm.
It changed lives. It changed lives. FD. It
I
changed
know
lives.
it did. I know it did. Crack Car Company. Thoughts on non-sports car autographs, PMGs, etc. That you see the great creator and his left-hand man, Merle World Suarez, talking about.
He's a left hand man instead of the right hand man.
Yeah,
Oh
I didn't know
man.
he was left.
I don't know. It might be more sinister. The left side. The left is the sinister twin. Um, uh, I understand the fixation of it. I would say that a lot of this comes down to people looking for the next thing.
Mhm.
My opinion is always I try never to give advice on telling people what to buy or not to buy. But my thought is, look, if you're legitimately passionate for it, go for it. If you can find
You
something you
enjoy it?
like, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's legit, if you're just looking for an avenue to throw money into because the other thing's more expensive, I'm lukewarm on that. That's not something that I don't care about a lot of that non-sport stuff. Although wrestling I would consider non-sport, but like the Marvel stuff and whatever, I know of it. Because my younger brother collected the Marvel cards and things like that, so I know of it, but I have no passion for it. So it would be insincere for me to have been like, "Oh yeah, let's get some Wolverine." I don't care about it. But
and
I
I,
can.
and I kind of feel the same way on Rolling with FT. Like I try to talk about what I collect and what I get passionate about, and it's kind of it has a lineage back to when I was a young collector all the way up to now. We're talking about basketball right now. I could talk to you about basketball when I was 8 years old. So it goes all the way up. I really got young into comic books and reading comic books and being with my brother doing that. That's the side of Marvel that I'm more into than Marvel cards. But if someone is very interested in PMGs and Marvel cards and going back to the 90s Marvel cards and going back to the 60s Marvel cards, I salute them. If that's what's in their kind of PC, or if they even want to buy, sell that, more power to them. There are many things in this hobby that everyone can be interested in and be passionate about, and it's there for them. So I support that overall.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's I try my best to be. I try not to close my mind to anything.
Mhm.
I want to know about it. I want to understand. I want them to tell me about it. I'm personally not interested. I'm not going to buy into it. But no, tell me about it. If you're legitimately passionate, I'm happy to hear about it. Sure. Yeah, tell me about it.
So I like to have conversations about many different things. Nolan Ryan threw 230 pitches in a game.
Yep.
13 innings.
Yep.
Think
That was
about
that was in the 70s. That was in the 70s. That was in the day of no pitch counts. Nolan Ryan was a freak of nature. He threw literally until his arm finally fell off.
Yeah,
At age 46. At age 46.
Yeah, I saw the game. Something in his arm actually popped. He
Yep.
held his arm, walked to the dugout, walked into the tunnel, and that was the last game Nolan Ryan pitched.
But do you know what was the speed on the radar gun for his last pitch he ever threw when he popped that arm?
What was it?
98. He threw 98 at 46, and that's what finally ended his arm.
Kind of player. And if you meet him, if anyone out there has a chance to meet him in person, I mean, he tells stories. He has conversations. He's a pleasure to. I've met Nolan Ryan 3 times, and he's been a pleasure each time to talk to.
It's very possible he would have kept pitching if his arm hadn't busted. Because I think he just liked it. Like, it's not like he needed to. It's not like he needed the money. It's not like he did have a World Series ring, so it's not like he needed accolades. You know, he was never going to win a Cy Young with the style of pitching he did, and at that time, they didn't appreciate certain things he did. But you know, but I think he would have just kept playing. I think he would have tried to pitch to 50. He would have tried to get into like Satchel Paige territory. Like, how long can I go?
How long can I go? John Patterson. John, thank you for being here. Love you guys. I believe non-sports cards has most room as Fanatics pushes pop culture. I bought a graded Bono from YouTube rookie card for $25.
Good old Bono, yeah.
Yeah, 1940 Wizard of Oz PSA 10 for $100.
So I would say, conceptually, I have no issue with this take because, but it goes back to, here's the thing. The second half of that one sentence is the key. As Fanatics pushes pop culture. If somebody puts enough attention in front of you at it, and it's already starting low, you can only have the most room if you're starting low. So you got to start with like, actually, nobody kind of cared about it. We rejected it for years. That's what happened when the soccer thing took off. I laughed because I used to go to my card show here near Toronto, and there was a guy who has a whole booth. It was all soccer. And I could have gotten all the Mbappe you wanted, like him and the other guys. And I'm the only Latin who doesn't care about soccer. But all those guys, it's like they were there by the box, by the case. How much you want? It was cheap, and no one cared for years, year and year and year. No one cared. Now all of a sudden, it's like, oh, soccer's super hot. It's like, where were you all years ago when I could have bought cases of that crap?
It's funny how it goes. I always talk about the lens of the hobby. When does the hobby start paying attention to something? And then what happens to the car values afterwards? Even when we talk about LeBron James and Kevin Durant and other players, there are cars out there, even Kareem Wilt, that are less popular, probably lower populated cars. There's some things that people really talk about and seek after. But when will the hobby's lens pass by those cars? And then what happened at that point? Because people are always looking for something new, something different.
Yeah, but we got to remember, the most important thing that happens is as soon as the hobby's lens go to that, you're going to have the people who are going to sit there and say, but it's insincere. It's like, okay, look, man, I don't have enough time to figure out the demand and figure out the demand you consider to be sincere. I don't care. From a market perspective, look, as long as somebody bought it and paid for it and the sale was legit, it counts. Nobody asks why. Maybe you just really like the color green and you decided to buy the green PMG just because of that. You really like green. I don't care what was on it. It was a Jordan green PMG. You paid $5 million for it. I really like green. Okay, it counts. Whatever. Do that.
So Joe Montana was expensive as a kid. Now they're super down. I've seen a change in Joe Montana stuff.
Yeah.
I think that all has to do with Tom Brady.
Sort of, but it also came from an era where his stats aren't going to pop off the stat sheet.
Yeah, 33,000 passing yards.
Yeah, so like I think there'll be guys that'll be past that in their 20s. Mm-hmm. And they'll be like average quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But it's because
Jerry Rice only had like 68 touchdowns between both of them. Yeah. That's very regular now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the nature. Football is the one sport that I would say is going the opposite. Basketball to a certain degree because of the 3-pointers, so they did change the stylistically. But football, with the rules saying we can't touch the quarterback, basically we can't breathe on him or it's a penalty. That means that guys are going to throw for 5,000 yards way more consistently, whereas before nobody threw for 5,000 yards. Jameis Winston has a 5,000-yard passing season.
That's right.
Matthew Stafford has a couple of 5,000-yard passing season. I never played a game of football, and I think I threw for 5,700 yards last year.
There you go.
Like I was watching on TV and I threw for 5,700. It's easy. Anybody can do it.
Well, now you have the quarterback throwing this dink pass to a receiver for 5
yards after catch.
Before that was a running back running the ball. Mm-hmm. So now you have that stuff, and then you have a 5 to 7 yard catch that somebody may turn up for 20.
Yep.
The entire game has changed.
Yeah. Plus, we have a 17th game now, so that'll bump up the stats just a little bit more. Don't sleep on the possibility that Matthew Stafford may at some point be right up there at the top all-time passing yards, and he's got a Super Bowl. So all of a sudden, there'll be like, is he a Hall of Famer? It's like, well, he's like second all-time in passing yards, and he's got a Super Bowl. So probably, yeah.
One of the biggest differences between the PSA 10, there are others, and the PSA 9 is the Joe Montana rookie card. Mm-hmm. If you look at the PSA 9, this value is nothing like a 10. 10 is very rare, low pop, low number. Yeah, well, that card is pretty expensive, but it's a lot of other Joe Montana stuff that is quite affordable, especially some on-car autos from Upper Deck.
I would say if I'm not in the market looking for them, but if I wanted to get like a Joe Montana thing, I would look for something like that, and or I would look for something nice game used. Yeah. Like if you could get like a nice game used piece from the 90s, probably would be the best time to look for that. That would be the kind of thing I would look at because at least it's tougher to come by. It's a little rarer. Same kind of. I don't know if the discrepancy is quite as dramatic as that one. The toughest PSA 10 right now, ratio wise, one of them is the Ricky Henderson rookie.
Oh yeah, that's
for a guy who's so dominant. For a guy who's so dumb, I actually saw YouTube's been good for this because there's certain YouTube channels that specialize in documentaries on some of these players, and there's a bunch that talk about Ricky Henderson. And one guy actually went year by year and talked about Ricky Henderson's accomplishments year by year and how ridiculous he was. It's one of those things. It's like, guys, you should probably look into this. Like Ricky Henderson was kind of ridiculous,
very much so,
and entertaining and weird.
Yeah, any guy that can talk about himself in third person consecutively all the time to his own teammates is amazing to me.
FD, I have no idea what you're talking about because I'm Carlos. No idea what you're referring to, sir.
I like that. Yeah, because I am Carlos.
It's like I can relate to this. Is that what I'm saying? Is it speaks to me? Is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah, when he tells his coach, Ricky's gonna steal home, and then Ricky goes to steal home. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Jerry Rice. This was from Paul. Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here. Jerry Rice is impossible 10. That's a tough card.
Yep.
You got the green around the edges. You got the chipping going on. Is it off center or
Yeah,
not?
it's a thin stock as well.
It varies from stock. 86 house was made from toilet paper. That's a hard card to find. And then that's the year when I really started collecting football cards. That's a hard card to get in a good grade.
Well, that's where the guys that took really cared about the eye appeal back then get to reap the benefits now. Because back then it's like, oh, it's a little bit better centered. Yep, I'll take that for the normal price.
Mm-hmm.
In the graded world, now we care about that stuff more, right? So now it's like, oh, it's the premium. It's like now you can get a PWCC sticker on it or something like, and there you go. The price will jump up another level.
I remember being in card shops, LCSs, as a child, probably like 9, 10 years old. This was way before grading. And there would be arguments on if a card was near mint, or not.
Mm-hmm.
Between someone trying to buy the card at a certain price and someone trying to sell a card. And it's just interesting to me how grading takes that whole conversation and changes it to something else.
Yep.
But there's no back and forth on what's the grade of this card.
Well, I think it's for the best. Honestly, it was a very annoying conversation.
I agree.
I remember having it. I was like, it's really annoying. Like it's like, okay, look, it's like, but that corner's really. Please shut up. I don't want to have this conversation. We're done already. Please let's stop.
Henderson's best quote. You could cut them in half, and both halves will be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, the 1400s steals are not getting matched. The game isn't played like that anymore.
Yeah, the game has changed.
Yeah, so a guy who can steal 130 in a year. There was that's why I said in that little documentary, they pull clips from different interviews, people talking about Ricky Henderson stuff, and I think I want to say it was like Harold Reynolds or something like that. It was like
Harold Reynolds gives great Ricky Henderson stories.
Yeah, but this specifically, they were asking about one specific thing. Apparently, Harold Reynolds led the league in stolen bases one year, and I think he had 65, 66 steals. And apparently, Ricky Henderson called him, and he goes, "What happened?" And he goes, "What do you mean? I stole 65." It's like, led the league, whatever. It's like, and he goes, "Ricky would have had that at the break." Click. Not wrong. He's not wrong.
I love him.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, I enjoy the personality side of it. I enjoy the silliness. I enjoy the conversation you could have with it. It's like Ricky Henderson's fun.
And that's another guy. You meet him in person, man. He is just sitting there talking to you, telling stories, laughing about stuff. And he's a big fan of baseball overall, the history of baseball.
He's another guy who would have kept playing if they would have let him.
Mm-hmm.
He just likes playing.
High school running back. And he ran bases like a high school running, like a running back in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, love what you collect, says Carlos. What grading companies do you like or do you use?
So personally, I will use PSA, but I pick and choose my spots. It's not like I'm sending hundreds of cards. PSA Canada was in here earlier, so Brad from PSA Canada. He is he represents one of the biggest bulk submitters we've got here. Mm-hmm. But their reputation, I know people are like iffy on the bulk submitters. I understand. But the PSA Canada has been in business almost 20 years. So I was actually working with his predecessor, Len Potty, who ran PSA Canada as Platinum Promotions. Did business with him for years, no issues, no problems. And now Brad's in it. Brad's a buddy, and when we were at the expo, we broke bread and we had dinner. So we just hang out, have a beer, have some dinner. So if you know the people and you're comfortable and you can do business over years and years and years, they're good. I have no moral opposition to any of the companies. So which one I use when I submit is PSA. However, I'm not going to turn down an SGC slab.
Yeah, you have one there.
Yep. See, I like CSG, not the label, because like a lot of people, I don't like the label. However, as a value play, if you personally are a collector, if it's for your PC, I would not reject the CSG slab. Because the clarity on the plastic, it looks really good. It can make a card pop on it. It's it's great. And you're getting it at a discount. So as far as I'm concerned, the fact that the market doesn't like it is to your benefit as a collector if you just want to get a nice card for and they grade a little bit more difficult. So a 9 in CSG might be a 9.5, in another grader. I'll get a BGS one here and there, but obviously they've hurt themselves. They've shot themselves in the foot and in the face repeatedly, and they're still doing that. But a good 9.5 with good that's quality, nicely centered, and all that. All of them have a purpose, except for HGA. The HGA is trash.
Now expand on that. Why do you think they're trash?
Because they're barely running a real company. They're not an authenticator. They actually don't know how to authenticate. And they decided to run a ramshackle organization, and they basically made their bones on, we make custom labels. Good for you. I don't need to pay for custom labels. I need you to actually grade and authenticate. If you can manage that, then that's a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think we need, truthfully, I know people like the idea of having additional graders. If you don't like PSA, wonderful. Use SGC. You don't want to use SGC or PSA, wonderful. Use Beckett or use CSG. We've got 4 reasonably good ones, and you can flip between them as you wish. I consider those to be 4 legitimate options. That is enough competition to keep them honest, because if somebody does a really bad job, then you can flip through it and go to the other one.
Have you heard of transparent grading?
I have, but it's anybody in kind of a second tier. It's like, I don't need it, because otherwise we could just be like, okay, we've got 47 graders. Why? It just confuses, it muddies the waters. Then I have to evaluate each individual one. In Canada, we have KSA grading, who's been around for years.
Oh, I've seen the KSA slab.
Yeah, whatever the grade is, add like 3. They've added like 3 or 4. It's like if it's a 10, it's probably a 6. Like it's pointless. It's dumb.
Yeah, I bumped into someone here at the show who had moved from Canada. He had KSA at his table, and we got into a conversation about that.
Yeah, and it isn't to say that you cannot find good cards in that holder, but I would only buy a KSA card if I was at a show and I could look at the card in person. If the card holds up to the grade, then so be it. But that's me using my experience as a hobbyist. That's me taking advantage of what I know, and then I'm comfortable with that. But I'm not buying that online. I don't care what picture you took of it. That's not going to cut it, because I need to look at that thing in person. That's why I say if it's one of those 4 graders, I'm reasonably comfortable buying the card with reasonable pictures on an eBay lot.
Do you see a lot of like KSA on eBay per se? I don't see a lot of that.
I don't think too much of it makes it on there, because at this stage, they know their niche. They know they do their best work, because they'll do on-site grading in the Toronto Expo and stuff like that. So they'll do it there. They'll turn it around, but it's not great.
So from the bench, there's KSA, ACA. I'm unfamiliar with ACA.
Yeah, ACA I'm not as familiar with. MNT is mint, and they're also trash. And they're overpriced trash, too.
It's interesting. I'm learning here. It's interesting. So it's good to have conversations. John Patterson said, back to LeBron again.
Sure.
If he finishes this season and 3 more complete seasons and averages 20 points a game, he will have 42,000 career points. I believe an unbreakable record.
How many 3-pointers is that? I would figure, in all honesty, jokes aside, I figure if somebody's going to break it, it's going to be somebody who does 3-pointers. It's like, I can throw 15,000 3-pointers and get 45,000 points.
Well, it's just interesting, the trends of a different sport, right? LeBron came in. LeBron was one of the first people that came in averaging 20 points straight out of high school. And it just kept going. You know, Kobe had to ramp up. Kevin Garnett had to ramp up. Moses Malone had to ramp up. People that just came out of high school that did very well in the NBA, that are Hall of Famers, that are top 75. A lot of these players had to ramp up. LeBron came in scoring. So almost from the onset of his career, you could look and say, what if this guy keeps this up? What would he do with Kareem's record? Now we're almost there. But I still think Michael Jordan is a better player overall.
No, sure. But it goes back to what we talk about the intangibles, right? Because what I said earlier about if you take Jordan's tenacity and put it into LeBron's body, you would have an unstoppable player.
Yes, right.
And the reason is because his physicality, his size, his power, his speed. But here's the thing. I guarantee you, if you put his tenacity into LeBron's body, the other thing you would also have is you'd have a guy who would be hell-bent on being an 85% free throw shooter.
True.
He would not give away free points.
He's on it, Carlos.
As far as he's concerned, he would be hell-bent on, I will make sure that I have an unstoppable move that is good at all times, that in my moment, when I need it in the clutch, I have an unstoppable move. Whatever that move is.
No one really talks about LeBron's free throw shooting percentage.
Except for Skip Bayless, who like harps on it endlessly. Yes.
All the time.
Yeah, but it's true though. But that right there is indicative of what I said earlier about the intangible. And the intangible is you are so athletically gifted that you are able to get past the fact that you're not actually a scorer. You're a facilitator. You're a next level passer of the basketball. And this is a non-basketball guy. It's just me observationally. You can tell he's a great passer of the basketball. He's got vision for passing. He's a million times better of a passer than Jordan is. But Jordan is a scorer. As a pure scorer, Jordan is a far better scorer. But Jordan also will like fight you. He'll like bite your leg on your way down the court. That's the kind of guy he is. Again, he's a jerk, but that helps because that means he'll fight you to the bitter end to try to win. If LeBron had 10% of that, we wouldn't even having the GOAT conversation. We'd be like, you're the guy.
He's some kind of player.
Yeah.
John Patterson asked a question. Carlos, I'm in Vancouver. Where are you?
So I'm in Mississauga, which is a suburb just outside Toronto.
There you go. Riley asks, most overvalued players in the hobby right now. I'll jump out there and say LaMelo Ball.
I think that's fair. A guy that young. At the moment, given where he's at compared to how quickly he rose, Mahomes. I think he's great. I enjoy him. Like as a player, I enjoy him. But his price went like this.
Way up.
And because now, great. Going back to what we said earlier in the show about the what ifs, it's funny because I bought 3 Mahomes Donruss rookies on ComC back before before he started his MVP season. So he hadn't really been a starter yet.
Okay.
I bought them all for less than $15. I sent in one for PSA grading, greatly centered, got back a 10. I sold for $200. That was going great. There was a point where it clearly covered 1,000, and then there's a point later where it went over 2,000. I'm sitting there like, really, guys? I had 3 of the damn things. Just sitting there. I paid $45 total for them. It happens sometimes. Like it is.
It does happen.
What are you gonna do?
Like
I wasn't wrong. My
weren't.
timing was off. My timing was off.
No. But if
I
you
made money on that deal.
You got a car for 15, you got it graded, and you sold it for 200, you're winning.
Yeah, and that was when you could get the grading for $20.
That's right.
So it's like, I did all right, just not as all right as I would have done a little later. How could I have foreseen that?
Yeah, you cannot. You cannot. Who's going to pull the LeBron Logo Man 101 and not sell it to Drake?
I think you should do it, FD. I think it's got to
Drake is not going to pull it. I can tell you that.
I think for Drake, it's fun.
Oh,
it's funny. Fun. People obsess about it. It's like I think Drake would like it, but I don't think he really cares. I think for him, it's more enjoyable to like, what the hell? We'll give it a try.
That's right. Throw your hat in there, and then it keeps him relevant. Like he's talking to his demographic right now.
Yeah, right now, for him in relative terms, the boxes he's opening are dropping the bucket. It's like us opening blaster boxes.
That's right.
Opening it for fun, just for kicks, whatever.
Brendan said also, I could see Vegas Dave lighting it up on fire.
At least that'd be fun. Listen, as a content creator who talks about news and stuff, please.
It would be interesting.
I always make the joke, and again, it's a joke, just so that no one cries about it. I always say it's like when it's a slow news week, it's like, Ken Golden didn't light himself on fire again. This is very disappointing. Ken, we'll get you the kerosene. Let's go, buddy. Let's go. We need to get some excitement around here.
That's right. You know, when Golden was opening boxes with a few other people, Shine and another gentleman, when the boxes weren't opening right, Ken Golden got up and started showing his Babe Ruth badge, his 86 Fleer unopened box, some other stuff, until they hit a John Morant 101 card.
Oh, at least he didn't go to the Barry Bonds thing. He always goes to the Barry Bonds thing.
Yeah.
Did you guys know I know Barry Bonds? Yes, we know you know Barry Bonds. Did you guys know I know Shaq? Yes, we know you know Shaq. Got it.
Well, he was at Shaq's draft.
No, I understand. Like I understand that. I understand that he's not lying. I'm just saying he leans on that. That's one of the Ken Golden tropes. It's like, did you guys know I know Shaq? Yes, Ken. The 57,000th time you said it. Yes, we know you know Shaq.
And then the All-Star weekend, he was taking pictures with Shaq and all over the place with Shaq. Yeah. From the bench, LaMelo Ball. My thought on that is LaMelo, every Hall of Fame or every first team All-Pro. I mean, it's so early in his career.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. It really is almost impossible.
Yeah. I mean, he is, I want to see LaMelo have a consistent jump shot and consistently play defense. This is some of the fundamentals of the game after all the hype is over with. John said, just for clarification, MJ is the best. I just think that if LeBron breaks Kareem's record, that means a lot to younger fans. It does. I believe his cars are a buy. I agree with that.
I agree, especially with the last part. And another thing, though, there is something to be said for longevity. Like you do have, that is a skill, like in and of itself, to still be. It's not just hanging in there. It's not like he's out there in year 18 or whatever he's at now, getting 10 points a game. Yeah. So it's like, no, actually, he's still pretty good. Like he's still a good. Isn't he close to leading the league in scoring this year?
Oh yeah, he's
right up there
right now with Giannis.
That in and of itself is actually pretty good. That's kind of impressive, at this stage, having as many minutes and games that he's played.
Yeah. PSA Canada says it's been a pleasure listening, guys. Great knowledge and insights from true sports fans. Thank you very much.
Yeah, have a good night, Brad. Take it easy.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, other people are saying LaMelo Ball upset. He always comes to mind to me. just because of the amount of hype that was built up around
It'll
him.
always be the young guy who will get it. If it's not LaMelo Ball, it'll be another guy in a year or two. It'll be somebody else.
John Patterson said, "Why are Burrow's high-end cars worth more than Mahomes?" I believe that's because you saw a decline with Mahomes.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the most recent ones. Has Burrow surpassed Mahomes in equivalent cards though? When we say high end, there's a lot of high end, right? So like, are we talking about like an RPA beating a Mahomes RPA? Because the Mahomes RPAs have gone for a pretty penny.
Yes, they have.
I'd be very surprised if Burrow's, again, there can be some really expensive Burrows, but I'd be curious if an equivalent card, like a Contender's Auto or something, like that'd be what I'd be looking at.
Colorado says, "Do you see some exciting things this year in the hobby with cars or grading companies or anything? Or will all the talent in baseball be exciting enough?" MLB has a lot of great talent currently. A lot of great talent in baseball right now.
Yeah. I think it's very difficult to try to be more exciting than we've been in the last year and a half, 2 years. Like we had markets 10x. I guess it depends on how you define excitement, right? If you're talking about like transcendent players, then sure. There's so much talent. You can have something very spectacular happen. That could be a thing. If you're hoping the market is going to do something crazy like it did, between 2019 and 2020, like I'll give you an example. I'll give you a quick hockey example. Ovechkin now is third all time in goal scoring. I bought one of the Ovechkin Fleer Ultra rookies at the expo at the card show in 2019. I bought it raw, and I bought it for $50. The PSA 10 is pushing $1,400 on that one. At that time, you could have had it for a couple $100 in a PSA 10. So it's gone up like 6-7x in that time.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, he has been progressively scoring and scoring and scoring, and now he is third all time, and he just scored his 40th goal, and that is the 12th season he's done that, and that ties in with Wayne Gretzky for that record. And if he gets to 50, that'll be the 9th time he's done that. That ties in with Wayne Gretzky for that record. So it's like when you're consistently tying or surpassing Gretzky records on your way to potentially beating a Gretzky record,
That's significant, yeah.
that's kind of a big deal. And he's the only guy within even a million miles of any of those records because nobody else is anywhere close.
All right, so Colorado says a lot of talent in all sports, so I'm hoping for a fun season from MLB.
Me too.
NBA playoffs should be good. I hope the NBA playoffs are actually good.
I'll be good with almost anything. I kind of want to see the Nets falter because it'd be so much fun to watch. It'd be so much fun to watch KD like get mad. It's like Kyrie. I just want them to get mad at each other. The beef would be worth so much FD. Like I'm here for it. I'm here for the salt. I'm here for the beef. Let's go. That's all I want.
I like that. I'm here for the salt. I'm here for the beef.
Listen,
I don't think the Nets are going where people think they're going.
I appreciate the athleticism of basketball. I appreciate the athleticism. I do. But like, I'm not watching basketball in the regular season. I don't care. I'll watch a little bit in the playoffs. That's fine. But like, no, I want the beef. I want these guys to feud. And I want KD to have to somehow like figure out a different thing. It's like, all right, so this super team's not working. Let's try again. Kawhi, you want some friends?
So Craig Card says LaMelo is equal to Sean Bradley height. I've never heard that comparison before.
That is a callback.
Wow, interesting. Hero 3, if LeBron wasn't a scorer first, then what is he? I think he's a facilitator. He's not close to the blocks, rebounds, or assist records. I sound like a hater, but I just don't like that narrative.
He's the only guy with 10,000. He's the only guy with 10,000 assists, and the only guy with 10,000 rebounds who has as many points as he does. Like he's actually very balanced. And I don't recall like how many times has he led the league in scoring? I don't think he has.
No, he has not. Michael Jordan led 10 times. Yeah,
so like he literally has never led the league in scoring. This year he's actually got a good shot at it, but like this is the first time in year 18 because he is not a scorer first. He literally is not a scorer first. He would rather take like a great pass and position it perfectly and set up his team for score. He will get his. Like he is capable of being that kind of a scorer, but he chooses not to.
But also LeBron builds a team around himself that has outside shooters.
Yeah.
No, he's looking for other guys to take that shot. He's building a team for that.
Yeah. Part of that though is kind of that intangible thing. Like I said, I don't want to give Skip Bayless too much credit because he overdoes it. Like it's to the point of like extreme. I think there is something to be said for like he actually doesn't want to take the last minute shot, like game on the line. Where it really matters is like actually the series will be a win or loss on the shot. You miss the shot, the series ends.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to be. I think he wants. It's like, how about you take that shot?
That's right.
He'll make a beautiful pass. It'll be like a perfect pass to the guy for the open shot.
That's exactly what LeBron wants. And that's, to me, that's the difference. That's why when we talk about greatness and GOATs and what's your all-time great list, LeBron is lower on my personal list because of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
If you want to take over that game and take the shot and send that other team home, you're higher on the list. If you can hit that shot on a consistent basis and you want it like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, there's something to be said for that.
Now, fairness, I'll take Jordan because Jordan is slightly more likely to actually make the game-winning shot.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe will take the game-winning shot. It's like, Kobe, you're not going to make that shot. He goes, watch me. It's like, no, you missed that shot. Like, you flat out missed that shot. Like, bless you, but you missed that shot. You did not make that shot.
Yeah. What's the hockey players that you think are good buys right now?
It's ridiculous as it sounds based on what I just said. Ovechkin's still good.
I think he is. I've looked at some of his cards, and some of them are still
not as good as it was, to be clear.
No.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was much better, given the example I just gave, like the difference in the. But a guy who is chasing, just put it into context. I said he's third all time. I said all those things, but I want to give more context to it, just so that we understand each other. He is the only guy who did not play in the 70s, 80s, or 90s at all, who is at the top of that scoring chart. Everybody else who's right up there, 700 goals plus, 600 and plus, and they're above, all of them played some time in the 70s, Gordie Howe towards the latter portion of his career, 80s, Gretzky dominated the 80s, or the early 90s, the Mario Lemieux and those guys, 80s, a lot of 80s and 90s in there. Jaromir Jagr, a guy who could have been right up there, 90s. Ovechkin played in an era where goal scoring is down across the board, relatively speaking, compared to these guys. The next closest guy to him is Sidney Crosby. He's 270 goals behind him. Ovechkin has lapped him. He's lapped his entire generation. It's not even close.
That's great context.
Yeah, it's like in basketball, if like we're getting Wilt Chamberlain now, and he decides to score 100 points in a game now, and everybody else is just like, what on earth are you doing, sir? It's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And he's doing freakish things, and he's being consistent, and he's doing it into his 30s and into his mid-30s. Does that guarantee he's going to beat Gretzky? No. But Gretzky had, the 1980s was a cheat code. It was unfair compared to everybody else. It's the opposite of football. It would be like if you suddenly went back to, by the way, we're banning the forward pass. So now nobody will throw for 3,000 yards ever again. It's the opposite. And he's still doing it anyway. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm going to score 40 or 50 anyway, just because I can.
That's good context.
Yeah.
This is a question I wanted to get to today. Rick, this is awesome, guys. Great content. Thank you. Now that Matt Ryan just got traded to the Colts, do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
No.
Me personally, I don't think Matt Ryan is a Hall of Famer. I've
No.
never thought highly of Matt Ryan. I don't think his nickname of Matty Ice even applies to him. The man doesn't have ice in his veins. He doesn't take games over. Julio Jones left because he couldn't get him the ball. I think the Colts is a great place for Matt Ryan.
I think, though, it would have been a very different. The fun about sports is the what if. What if up 28-3
There
in
you
the
go.
Super Bowl?
He
Up
beat
28-3.
Brady. Yeah.
What if? And I had the perfect strategy for beating them. Get ready for this. You're gonna like this. A football guy, you'll appreciate this. Here's my strategy. We're going to the late in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. Here's my strategy. We kneel 3 times and punt, and we just do that for the rest of the game. I think they actually still win. Somebody can run the numbers, but I think if we kneel 3 times, run the clock to 1 second, and punt, I think that's actually better than what they did. And then what happens if they win? Well, he's a Super Bowl champion. The entire context of his career potentially changes. I'm a big believer that a big shift in momentum is huge. I think the whole thing with the Buffalo Bills and the bad luck they ran into, the first of the 4 Super Bowls they got to in the 90s, they were right in position to win. If that kick goes through the center, I think, number one, I don't think the Bills get to 4 Super Bowls. I think they maybe get to 1 or 2 more. But I also think maybe they win 1 or 2 more. And the Buffalo Bills of the 90s go down. Jim Kelly goes down as a 2-time or 3-time Super Bowl champion. He's still a Hall of Famer either way.
Yeah.
But that's like an exclamation point on it. That's like a, hey, great job, man. That was a great team. You guys did a good job. And it changes the legacy of everybody. It completely shifts it. I think if they win that Super Bowl, all of a sudden Tom Brady has lost 3 straight Super Bowls.
It is different.
It changes a lot of things, right? Because he gets so much credit for the comeback. It's like, the thing is, in football, if you're down by 25, the only way you can win is if the other team helps you. You can't score enough by yourself.
You have to do something to get other possessions. Yeah.
You almost, it's the analogy I gave to somebody to try to visualize it. It's like, imagine you're running a marathon. Like, the marathon is, I think, 25 or 26 miles. I forget the exact amount. So you're on mile 25. The finish line is right in front of you. And the Atlanta Falcons are running this marathon. Tom Brady is like on mile 1 because he's unathletic. Did I mention he's unathletic? I just want to point that out. So, like, you know, he's like days away from ever getting to the finish line.
Yeah.
But the point is, you're the Atlanta Falcons. You're 1 mile away from the end. You can see the finish line. And you have a brain aneurysm and drop dead. And Tom Brady is so unathletic, it takes 3 days. But eventually he gets there, and the chalk line has been removed from the body's been dragged away, and he crosses the finish line, and he wins the race. That's what happened in that Super Bowl. It wasn't like this impressive performance. It was like, no, they really did everything in their power to lose that Super Bowl. But guess what? It still counts. The record clearly states.
It's crazy. Their comeback was crazy. I'm watching the game at a friend's house. Patriots are losing so badly. I say, you know what? I'm going to go home. I get in the car in LA and I'm driving home. It takes me about 45 minutes or so to get home. And by the time I turn on ESPN radio, the announcers are going crazy because the Patriots have come back. When I first turned it on, I didn't know what was going on. Like, why are they so excited? That was a crazy game, man.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, but isn't it funny how narratives work? If they don't blow a 25-point lead, if they just finish, if they just finish the job, win comfortably, what are we even talking about? Matty Ice is a Super Bowl champion, probably Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, he probably would have.
What's the problem? What's the problem?
Like, he had a decent game from a statistical perspective. Yeah.
And there's a good chance that momentum carries forward into future seasons, even if they don't win again. They're probably still competitive. They're probably still a decent team. He's got the cachet of being a Super Bowl champion. He had just come off the MVP season that year. Mm-hmm. What a cherry on top of an MVP season. Super Bowl MVP. Hey, you're good to go.
Julio Jones maybe doesn't leave. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that could happen.
Your entire story looks different. It feels different. Like, it's a lot easier to look at you that way and go like, Super Bowl champion, MVP, Super Bowl MVP, the whole 9 yards. Like, awesome. Great job.
That's an interesting perspective. Brenda, prevailing theory is good stuff. Will always be good. Ultramodern is a strange animal. Well, it's volatile. It's there are things changing all the time in ultramodern.
I like that. I like the dynamic aspect of it.
So
that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I like that part of it. Do you get it right though? Do you try to understand what's going on? Who are these players that are involved? I don't know. Do you let them take some time to show you who they are as a player before you decide to greatly invest in what they have going on? I don't know. That they're like, you talk about Baker Mayfield, right? Baker Mayfield now is moving on from Cleveland. I don't know what's happening to the value of his cards. I haven't looked them up. But there are some people who make great investments in Baker Mayfield, as well as other players. There are other players that you can name that may not be doing what Trae Young. There's probably some people who make great investments in Trae Young. Go to Atlanta. What Atlanta? He's not performing that well this year compared to years in the past.
Yeah.
But it's fun. To me, it's fun.
That's the thing, yeah.
Hero 3, Hero always wants the ball at the end. I agree.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
so.
That's very true.
Brendan said, do I think games are too long? Which games are you referring to?
I assume it's baseball, because baseball is usually the one that gets accused of too long. Yes, but it's by their own fault. They've catered the TV product to the point that they've created a bunch of extra delays they don't need. The game could actually be much quicker. Like, you can have, history proves that you can have 9-10 inning games in a sub 2 hours. It's very possible. And you can have run score.
When they went to the eliminating the 3 pitches for a walk, I thought that was taking a step in the right direction. I said that years ago. Like, why do you need to throw 4 pitches to get this guy on first base?
Well, the 4 pitches, I think that was like a temporary thing that happened because it's been 4 pitches for a walk for a very long time, like for the better part of a century.
Yeah, but I'm saying now, you can just say, I'm going to walk this guy. He goes to first base.
Oh, yeah. That part I agree with. Yeah,
that was a step in the right direction.
It's true, but I think what's more problematic for time, and I gave a very simple example. Forget everything else. Pretend you leave the game exactly the same. You let the batter go to the batter's box and all that, although it's unnecessary to do it as much as they do. But let's say you let them do it. Great. What do you think would happen if I just took off a couple of the commercial breaks? What happens if I didn't put commercial breaks through about the 4th or 5th inning? Mm-hmm. They're about 2 to 3 minutes per commercial break. It's a commercial break every half inning. I'm removing about 10 commercial breaks. It's about 30 minutes of real life time.
That's right.
because it doesn't take that long for the fielding unit to come out, throw a couple of practice pitches, and go.
Mhm.
That takes about 30 seconds. It doesn't take
Even when
3
you're
minutes.
at a game, you can see that. That's when people get up, go to the concession stand, all that.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I wouldn't mind, because if I'm there live, I'm literally watching these guys throw the ball around for 3 straight minutes. They're just killing time. Like, nothing's happening, and they're already ready. They're in position. They're there. Nothing's happening during that time.
I agree. Ovechkin, this is from John. Ovechkin, Crosby, and Lemieux, good guys. Maybe still Tim Horton, or has some affordable raw cards too.
Crosby, I would say, is good just because he gets overshadowed with Ovechkin. Lemieux's great in general. Ovechkin, for the reason we talked about. Tim Horton was a great player, but he's forgotten predominantly for a lot of folks. So it's like, yeah, you could. And vintage in general will go up. So, like, from that perspective, sure. Bobby Orr is a guy who's kind of in the GOAT conversation for an entire generation, so that helps with that. Like, Tim Horton cards are available cheap because right now, most people, if I poll people in Canada, they think Tim Horton is the donut shop.
Yeah, I've heard Tim Horton donuts.
Yeah, because it is, but he was the founder of it. But he was a hockey player and a Hall of Fame one in his day, so like a great player. But that's it.
So Albert asks, why does Brady always make it to the bowl?
He doesn't. He's played 22 seasons. He made it to 10 Super Bowls. That means he doesn't make it half the time. He went 10 years without winning one.
He did go.
He sucks. He's trash. Moving on. I already said nice things about him. We're moving on.
Tom Brady.
If he was the GOAT, he'd have made it to 20 Super Bowls. He'd have won 15 of them.
120.
Less than 15, trash.
AZ Dad 32. FD and guest. What are your thoughts on the AFC West arms race? Loading up with talent. Herbert, Mahomes, and Wilson in the same conference is nuts.
It is. Yeah.
You buy any of those QBs right now?
I'm not. But you like I said, Mahomes is right now. I still think his pricing is high, and part of it is for the reason that you outlined here. It's just going to be so competitive. That's going to be a murderer's row. I'll use the comparable just because, like I said, it's a good reference point for me. In the 90s, when I was watching hockey a lot more closely, my favorite player, Maddox, was obviously one of the players in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The Dallas team they had there was a great team, a really legitimate all-time great team, full of Hall of Famers. But they were playing a Detroit Red Wings team that was full of Hall of Famers. And they're playing a Colorado Avalanche team that was full of Hall of Famers. All over the place. Hall of Fame from goal on out. Forwards, everybody's Hall of Famers. All over the place. On all these teams. Which meant they were bludgeoning each other every year in the conference to get to the finals. Whoever got to the finals was a super strong team. But that's because they had to go and murder two other super strong. It was like Godzilla and Mothra. And then by the time they get to the Stanley Cup final, it's like, a Care Bear. And they like kill them. 99% of the time. New Jersey was the only one who could kind of hang with them because they were a legitimately good team. But that meant that New Jersey was the team that could consistently get to the final. These other guys would just beat each other over the head, and whoever survived, because they were physical series, whoever survived would get to the Stanley Cup final. And sometimes New Jersey would win, not only because they were great, but also they didn't. While they had attrition, it wasn't attrition like in the West. There were a lot of these teams that probably should have been 3 or 4 times Stanley Cup champions during that era. But it's like, so you're going to play this team, and you're going to play this team, and you're going to play this great team? Good luck with that.
That's right. And that was the NBA in the 80s. You had hardcore Hall of Fame teams battling each other out to get to the finals. And when you got to the finals, sometimes that finals was not as competitive as the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference finals.
Yeah. And it was just, it's bad luck. It was the luck of the draw. But a lot of those teams, like, you could have made an argument that a lot of those teams, if they had not been forced to go through that gauntlet every year, they would have been healthier and they probably could have won a couple more times. And as it was, they all got theirs. So all of them were able to at least get one championship out of it. But all of them can legitimately say, like, we should have won 2. We should have won 3. We should have won 4. We were that good for that long.
Very true. I will still say, I know we've talked a lot about, and just in general, Herbert and Mahomes. Please don't sleep on what Denver is about to do with Wilson and the defense and what they have in the running game. I say the same thing about Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland with the running backs that they have, the defense that they have, and the wide receivers they have. These teams are making big sales by getting a legitimate quarterback behind center.
I agree.
Game changer.
I agree. I think it's going to make it fun. So as a football fan, this is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad that the Packers are in the NFC. That I don't have to deal with any of this
That's
crap.
right. That's right. Yeah, because you're gonna beat down my Bears again this year.
At this point, as owner of the Bears, Aaron
That's right.
Rodgers will,
Is that Aaron
will
Rodgers?
advise you guys on what you could do. Your cheers and everything. But I think this is good. It's going to be funny because the Aaron Rodgers thing was fun for me because, and I think I mentioned it anyway, is that this was the year I finally was able to buy one of those certificates. So I am, technically a part owner of the Packers.
right.
But I said, as owner of the Packers, I was volunteering as tribute to throw Aaron Rodgers out. It's like, let me throw this man out. It's not that I don't like him. It's not that I don't appreciate him. Just to be clear, it's not that I don't appreciate him. But this is over. We need to move on. And they're like, no, well, let's drag it out longer. No, let's not. This is not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. It's going to get sadder as we go forward.
From the bench says, if you're investing in a QB, how much do you factor in the team's head office compared to the player itself? The front office plays a lot of a role in who is going to win. I've leaned more towards Zach Wilson over Lawrence because I think Blakey is terrible. I'm not a big Zach Wilson fan now.
It's not even about Zach Wilson. Is that you're basically, to make that statement, you are saying the Jets. Mm-hmm. I need you to take. Let's just all take a moment and think about that. The Jets. I don't feel like I have a follow up to that. I feel like that's enough. I feel like I've said all I need to say.
That's all you need to say.
Yeah,
You're talking about an organization that hasn't done much since 1963.
It's not good. It's not pretty. It's not good. Now, in fairness, the Jaguars, not good. It's not pretty. It's not good. No.
Well, hopefully they can move on. The Jaguars can move on to another coach and maybe some things happen. But
they need to move on to a lot of things. They need to move on to a lot of things over there. I do think the team's head office matters a lot because I was teasing Albert because Albert is one of my regulars in my chat. Okay. And that's why I say that he knows about my Tom Brady slander. That's part of my fun that I have. But the thing is, the organization that they built, what Bill Belichick did as a general manager as much as a coach. Because a lot of people look at like, oh, Tom Brady didn't have as many brand name receivers. Here's the thing. You don't need brand name receivers. You just need a good team.
That's right.
You need a great offensive line, which you had. You need a solid defense, which consistently you had. That's why you were able to consistently be in there. And then you need to do your job, which he did. And Bill Belichick needed to come up with a good game plan, which he did. Mm-hmm. All of these things together mean you're going to be consistently in the mix all the time. And you have a division that included the Buffalo Bills, which included the Buffalo Bills, included the New York Jets, and it included the, for some reason I always forget the last one. The Jets, the Bills, and who's the other team they beat up on?
You talking about Miami Dolphins?
The Dolphins. The Dolphins would have some success against them. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, that was like 6 free wins a year.
Yeah, it was.
Do you have any idea how easy it is to win a division if you consistently have 6 free wins a year? 5 to 6 free wins per year. It means you just need to be average against everybody else and you're at 10, 11 wins. Well, then you get to the playoffs, man. That's how you get to the Super Bowl. You got to get to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Well, 5 or 6 free wins, my friend, you are going to get to a decent amount of playoff appearances.
What always gets me about him, he's the person who will get his team to the third or the fourth quarter. They're up by, let's say, 10, and Belichick will start running that ball and eating the clock up. Yeah. And that saves his team for later weeks.
But that's sound strategy.
That's right.
Like I feel like it became for a while the whole Belichick Brady. It's like you don't understand. Both of them have a lot to do with what happened here. Because Belichick was also the general manager, and that's why I laughed. Is that I use the analogy. It's like you don't have all these brand name receivers except for that one year you had Randy Moss. By the way, you didn't win that year, but you were a really good team. Like it was a great team, but you didn't have the premier wide receiver in the game. But it's like, guess what? You had capable receivers who were able to catch the football. None of them were going to be transcended, but guess what? They catch the football. That's all you need.
Because it's all about getting to a spot in the offense and having the ball thrown to you.
Yeah. So do you want the diva wide receiver who's going to demand touches, or do you want the guy who's happy to do his role and will catch enough balls so that you can win games? Mm-hmm. Count the Super Bowls, man.
That's how it works. Brendan says the Jets are a true team built on hard work and sadness.
This is the second one especially, yes.
Colorado Sports too. I'm excited. Maybe Broncos have a receiving core better than Russell Wilson has ever had. Could be. Cortland.
I think that's a fair argument. I think you've got a case there.
Yeah, could be. I'll say they have a squad over there. It all depends on what they're going to do with it and what kind of protection they give him. The season will be very interesting well, I've seen more big name quarterbacks moving around to different teams that kind of fit what they do more than I've seen in the past.
I'm just excited because the way that the QB carousel happened, it became very entertaining after a while. Although my only regret, and I joked with it with some folks on a Discord, I said, "Look, I kind of it's bad that I'm kind of starting to like Deshaun Watson, not because I approve of what he did. I just like the chaos he's inflicting on all these franchises." Because in order to talk to them, they had to basically agree to a deal. So their existing quarterback's like, wait a minute, you're trying to get rid of me? No, you're great. But if we can get Deshaun Watson, you're out of here immediately.
That's definitely what Cleveland said.
But that's why it became like to me, I was like, Deshaun, do you want to just extend this a little bit longer? You sure you can't just randomly visit teams that you should go to Tampa? That'd be kind of funny. You should go. I don't care. Just go there. Just go there. It'll be hysterical.
That would be funny. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. I can't wait to see preseason games. And he's been out of football for quite a while.
Yeah.
My biggest question is how does that affect his playing ability, his play calling? Is he in shape? I mean, I don't know any of that.
I think that's fair. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can get himself back in there. I'd be curious to see if it's like, well, you've got a lot of guaranteed money coming. Do you want to just settle these damn lawsuits and get out from under that? Because the sooner you do that, that might be advantageous for you. The quicker the better for the team. Although they structured the deal in the way where if he's suspended for the year, he only loses $1 million for the first year.
Think about that.
Yeah, so they backloaded it. They just assumed, I think, the first year is a wash. So
it's interesting the guaranteed money that quarterbacks are getting now. It's like baseball money.
Well, that one is the one that comes off the charts. Yeah. $230 guaranteed is like, it's all guaranteed.
You know this is going to start something new.
Well, it is new for football. Yeah.
It's amazing. I would have never thought at all we would ever be here in 2022. Now, if you said 2032, maybe. But this is serious money that you're playing a quarterback that someone could come around the corner and destroy. And where's your franchise at?
I think it's only certain guys who are going to have the cachet to be able to pull that stunt, because on paper, Deshaun Watson is like a top tier quarterback that don't grow in trees. Like usually the franchise locks that up and you're not getting that person until their 30s, well into their 30s, if at all. So it was a bit of a unique situation. It is interesting. It is close to baseball money. You're right. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how they parlay that going forward. My only thing, and this is what's going to be funny, is now that Cleveland has made their choice and they've displaced Baker, I'm curious where is left for Baker to go. Like he's rapidly running out of vacations.
I believe he's a backup quarterback.
This is very possible. I did joke, the XFL's coming back.
That's right.
If he'd be really nice to The Rock, maybe he could get a starting job in the XFL. That might be kind of good.
That would be cool. Tyler says it's crazy to think that Watson got the highest contract in history. And 1 week ago, a lot of people thought he'd be in jail.
Yep.
This is how life works.
Well, FD, I'll tell you, and I'll share it with you. Just you, me, and the people listening.
Okay.
Again, and when I go into my trolley mode in this moment, my thought process is like, please, football gods, I don't ask for much of you. All I want you to do is, I want Baker Mayfield to rot on the vine a little longer. I would love nothing more than for somebody to take Jimmy G, and then all of a sudden Baker's stewing even more. I don't care who takes Jimmy G. Doesn't matter. Just somebody take Jimmy G. You'll know, though, the fix is in. You will know the fix is in if somebody's like, I wonder if we should give Colin Kaepernick a try. And all of a sudden Baker's like, oh, seriously, guys. Seriously.
Sure.
If somebody puts him there, it's like, you're a backup behind Kaepernick. Enjoy.
Baker may be like Aaron Rodgers on draft day. He may be sitting there for a while.
He might be rotting. But it would be so funny with his progressive. I wonder how the tone of his progressive commercials would change. A lot more negative tone in the progressive commercials after that.
True. All right, Carlos. I see this. The sweatshirt AEW.
Yeah, the AEW. Yep.
Yeah. Reference Seth Rollins WrestleMania.
That's what's projected. That's what's projected. I'm not interested. I think it'll be a good match. I'm sure they'll come up with an interesting story. I think that WrestleMania is going to be disastrous. I think it's going to be a terrible show. They'll try.
When is the WrestleMania?
It's coming up. I feel like a couple of weeks from now. It's not long. It's going to be over in Dallas. They're doing it. They're doing a 2-night one again. They've been doing that the last couple of years. April 2nd and 3rd.
April 2nd and 3rd. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be that weekend. I'm just not like I haven't bought any WWE pay-per-views or anything in years. I canceled the
Yeah,
network
about-
years ago. It's unwatchable. The show's terrible. It's not that it's not that they lack talent. It's just a miserable. It's an entertainment product. It's like your favorite TV show, but they killed off your favorite characters and the storylines suck. So it's like, not interested. Thank you.
Yeah,
I will
true.
watch a different show. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't watched WrestleMania in years.
You're not missing anything at this point. Maybe for probably the last 6 or 7 years, I'd argue you haven't missed a thing.
And people are still watching this stuff though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they still get like 2 million on Friday night to watch the SmackDown show, and I'm like, why? The show's terrible.
Interesting.
But hey, look, you got nothing better to do on a Friday night? Knock yourself out. I'm doing a live stream. I'm busy.
Yeah, maybe people put it in the background and do other stuff. I don't know.
I guess
There's
so. Yeah.
nothing that's really interested me.
Yeah. It's a simple rule. I treat it like a TV show. When it comes to wrestling and people ask about it, it's like, treat it like a TV show. To me, it's just not exciting. I don't enjoy watching it. And if I don't enjoy watching it, then why would time to me is so valuable now. I care
agree.
so much about my time. It's like, no,
agree.
this had better entertain me. Otherwise, you are wasting my time. And if you're wasting my time, I'm not interested.
I feel it about sporting events. I feel it about movies. I feel it about TV shows.
Yeah.
If it's just something that's not good, I'm not interested in spending the time on it.
Yeah. We got too many options now. There's so much good stuff that you could be watching or listening. You could read a book. You could do a bunch. You could do a bunch of. Go sort your cards. Like there's a million options. It's like we got better things to do with our time if this isn't going to be entertaining us.
So Paul says the USFL starts in about a month. I'm interested to see what these games are like.
I love all these generic off-brand
So
football
do I.
leagues.
Mhm.
Love them. It's a little bit out of shot because of the way because they're paying it forward. But I have an original XFL football over in my shelf.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I've also got an XFL mini helmet, and I got one of those outlaw like replica. I bought all that stuff on eBay years later after. And then the second iteration of the XFL, I've got a mug and a couple of things. It's like I love that stuff.
Yeah, I enjoy watching it. It's you got guys that are hungry out on the field trying to prove something or live a dream that they had before.
I agree with that.
From the bench, no bigger pops than Attitude Era music drops for The Rock, Taker, Stone Cold, Y2J, etc.
I agree. The problem is that was 20 years ago. We can't spend all our time living on 20 years ago. He's accurate. The audience was into it. It was a very different time period and different era. Although some of the stuff doesn't hold up. But The Rock was great. But a lot of his promos and a lot of his jokes and everything is like, you might not. Doesn't work. Doesn't work anymore, my friend. In 1999, you were good. This isn't gonna cut it right now. Stick to movies. You're good. Stick to movies. You're good.
Why do you think that? I know we see John Cena trying to make the move over to movies and do other things. Why do you think more wrestlers can't do that? I guess it'd be the same.
Can't
question,
or can?
like, cannot. I guess it'd be
Oh.
the same question. Like, why don't you see more football players doing certain things? Why don't you see more athletes doing certain things? It's just interesting to me that The Rock has build a personality. He can speak well, express himself.
Yeah.
That's rare.
Ironically, because the current wrestling product in WWE relies too much on scripting.
Okay.
The Rock and John Cena still came from an era where, like, yeah, you've got some bullet points, but you can ad lib.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the point I want you to get across. I need you to make sure you hit on this point. How you get there is up to you. And that in turn opens creativity. It allows you to come up with different ways of expressing yourself. Like I said, what worked in 1999 for The Rock would not work today. But I'm sure if he was asked to, he would tweak and modify certain aspects of it to bring it up to date. So there would be some adjustment made. But that's from learning how to do that. Ironically, by learning how to do that in that avenue, learning how to improv in that
Helps
way,
them in other areas.
it means when we go, yeah, you have a script, but now you can interject your personality because you know how to. Because you actually have to do it live in front of an audience. So it translates. Whereas a lot of the folks that are doing it now, it's like, no, I need you to read this verbatim. I need you to memorize it and regurgitate it. It's like, you don't sound like you're in this because I'm reading somebody else's words.
Yeah, true.
This doesn't sound like me because it doesn't sound like me.
Very true. I remember I bumped into Eric Dickerson years ago. He used to do sideline reporting for Monday Night Football. And I asked him, why did you leave that? And he said, most people don't even remember that I did that. But he told me that the reason why he left was because they wanted to script out everything that he said about the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to talk from what he knew about football.
Yeah.
And they had no interest in that. So he got frustrated and left.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that in a lot of stuff. It's interesting how that goes, though, because you would think if you hired a person who has a background in the sport, it's more than just their face of the the viewers watching, that you would give them that, let them kind of express themselves.
Yeah, but it's not everybody is good at doing it that way necessarily. Some people have a personality to be able to convey what they want to convey, and other people can express it. Some people can, even if they know a ton. It's the reason why, like, for all his accolades, for all his capabilities, for all his knowledge and ability in the game, Michael Jordan has never been a good general manager or coach or president of basketball operation. He cannot translate what he knows and he understands about the game into the court when somebody else has to do it.
That's true.
Can't scout it, can't explain it, can't teach it. Larry Bird was actually a decent coach because he could actually teach it in addition to actually understanding. Like, he goes, I can do, but you're not me, but I know what you can do. So let me explain it to you in a way so that you can do the most that you can, and we'll get the most out of you.
Well, you remember when Magic Johnson was a coach of the Lakers? That was not good at all.
That's what I mean. A lot of these guys, and Magic Johnson can talk. It's not that he can't articulate himself or explain things. It's like, but he can't coach. He can't teach. He doesn't know how to. It's a skill in and of itself. He doesn't have it.
Yeah, they said in practice he would be very frustrated that players couldn't do certain things that he was asking them to do.
Yeah.
And people around were like, well, hey, he's not Magic Johnson. He can't do that.
Same thing happened. Baseball, Ted Williams tried to be a coach. He wasn't particularly good at it. Like, there's a lot of guys that's like, great player. You know your stuff inside and out playing the game. You can't teach anybody worth a damn.
And then you take a former player like Lou Holtz, who was very average. Linebacker, I think he played. You put him in a head coaching position. He's a motivator. He can speak. He knows the nuances of the game. He can coach what you need to be doing. It's a very different thing. Just like Belichick played football.
Well, that's just it, exactly. He played like in Division III or something, like whatever. Because I read his biography, and it's one of those things where it's very interesting how he got into coaching and did all that. But like, he took it seriously from the beginning. Like, he went in but he is a lifelong coach. Once he got into coaching, it was like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm good at. This is how I do it. But it's the same thing as the way I say, like, where Brady, it was the right combination of folks at the right time. It was the right owner with the right general manager, coach, with the right player. All these three things came together. If Robert Kraft was not willing to tolerate Bill Belichick's prickliness in his ways and his style, they would have never gotten off the ground and been around long enough to have achieved the success.
That's true.
If they didn't have a Tom Brady who was willing to take the abuse because he was like a 7th round draft pick or 6th round draft pick, they would not have been. He was a sponge. He absorbed everything to maximize what he could do. Those three guys together, because Kraft doesn't get as much credit as he deserves for keeping the band together as long as he did. 20 years, pretty good. Those three, you're not getting that again. I put Tom Brady in a different situation, different franchise. He doesn't win a damn thing.
No, he doesn't.
I don't care what he does.
I agree with that.
Different coach, different owner. Guess what? Get back to pumping gas, Tom.
But there are a lot of players like that. You go to the wrong system, you have the wrong coach.
Yeah.
Remember, Dale Harris was all over Kobe Bryant to the point where they had to get him out of town to let Kobe become Kobe and get a coach in there that allowed him to flourish.
And now at this point, it's the opposite, because now he's ingrained, he's absorbed all that into himself at this point. There's like, he can be his own system. So he went to a team that already had a ton of talent, and they got, just listen to me. I've been there, I've done that, I've won all these things. Listen to me, and we'll win. The players buy into it. Already plenty of talent on the field. You're good. Don't worry about it.
From the bench says, Dan said in an interview, the reason a lot of backup QBs are good at coaching, etc., because they're used to having to chum up to all the members of the team and help them with while the starter leaves. I don't know about that.
Well, I think it's also that the backup QBs have to, because they're not playing all the time, they have no choice but to sit there and absorb everything they can. They're not getting reps. They're not getting first team reps. So they're like, you better be paying attention to what's going on, because if we do need you, you better know what's happening. You better understand the playbook. You better know this. So even if a guy never gets to play really very much, he's spent years and years and years absorbing playbook, listening to tape, listening to breakdowns. They're forced to be a student out of necessity because they don't get to participate in it as much.
I also think there's a something about relating to someone that has less talent.
Yeah.
If you're Joe Montana, or if you're Tom Brady, or you're Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan, your expectation on what you think that player should be able to do, it might be different than the guy that's sitting over here who went to a smaller school or was a lower draft pick or had to work his way through something. The viewpoint may be different, and I think that helps people become coaches. Can you take someone with this talent and foresee what their talent could be? That may be difficult for someone who just athletically or the way their mind works is superior than everybody else is on the field from an athletic or performance perspective than someone who had to work their way through something. I think that's a lot that has to do with backups or people who come from places where they played a Division II or Division III, and now they're great at coaching someone or mentoring someone. Because you don't see people who perform well teaching anyone to perform well.
It's the exception. That's why I use the Larry Bird example. He's a guy who had success on the court, who was able to translate. He was actually able to explain stuff, and I think that helped him. But that's a unique skill set, especially for a guy who was at the level that he was at, won championships, was able to do all these things, and was able to actually teach it and coach. That's rarer than the other way around.
It's hard to do that. It's interesting how that works. So you would think that players who perform very well would be able to step in and do that. But
Frank Robinson was a decent coach.
oh, he was, yeah.
Yeah, so he was a guy who could perform at the top level, but again, it's the exception rather than the rule.
Very true. Carlos, I appreciate having you on today.
Of course.
It's been great. This conversation is what I thought it would be, right? I enjoy watching your content. I really do. We watch on a consistent basis. It's just good to have you on and be able to talk to you about stuff. And you're a person that I would like to have on again in the future to talk through different things. I really appreciate your perspective in the hobby.
That sounds good. My pleasure. Had a good time. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll do this again soon in the future. You know, it's and I would love to come on your channel sometimes, just to, even if it's for just a few minutes, to say what's up, talk about a few subjects.
Oh, we'll see what we can do. Usually the Fridays are open. It's one of those things where if somebody wants to pop on, usually it's open. I don't leave the link out anymore where I used to, but it's one of those things. Just ping me and you can come on.
All right, I'll hit
come
you
on
up.
and chat and hang out. So
I hit you up. Yeah, come on and see.
that's what it's for. It's just the people that know. Just so you know, you can just ping me and I can get you.
All right,
it's not a big deal.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your time, sir. You don't know how much I appreciate it.
Of course, absolutely.
All right, I because I'm Carlos on What's the Play. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.